Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Good morning. Friday, November 13th, 9 a.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. Welcome to the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
You know, I hit that J-O-O Cartman sound drop.
I heard that, yeah.
And, it occurred to me, it's been a concern of mine, actually, if I'm being honest, since this Israel-Hamas war started, that Is it going to become like a cancelable offense for like Jews to make fun of ourselves now? Like, are we not going to be allowed to do that anymore? You know what I mean? Because of all the paranoia now, all the censorship, you know, all the policing of anti-Semitism on social media. Like, we're Jews. Are we not allowed to make fun of ourselves? Yeah, because if you tell Jewish people we're not allowed to mock ourselves, that's anti-Semitic because you're taking away from us really our gateway into society, the way we integrate ourselves into crowds of people. When we walk into a party, the way we get acquainted, the way we become popular is we crack jokes about ourselves and the fact that we're Jewish. So if you tell us we can't do that anymore, I'm sorry, that's some anti-Semitic bullshit.
Well, not only that, we're not going to be able to reproduce because that's how we get laid.
Exactly. Well, that too. That's too. This is eliminationist is what this is.
It is. It's eliminationist to not allow Jews self-effacing humor.
Right. All we have is self-deprecating humor. Without us, we will die out. We will die out. That is our evolutionary trait that has sustained us as a people, is our ability to mock ourselves in an endearing way to attract the opposite sex. Without that, we are not long for the world.
That's it. You think Woody would have banged all those hot chickses without a sense of humor?
Exactly. Perfect example. Example. That guy got around on his self-deprecating sense of humor alone, obviously.
Jew eat? Jew? No, not did you eat, but Jew eat?
That's it. Look, he worked that bit. Before you know it, he's banging Diane Keaton.
Yeah, and then, well, we won't get into that. We won't get into who he ended up banging, but, you know.
Well, yeah. There's that.
There's that. But that was later in life. He had a great run before then, thanks to his self-deprecating humor.
That poor, now middle-aged woman is like, Jesus, when is he going to die and leave me this money? He's gonna live forever, this man.
Poor making it rain. Look at this. We got two singing bowls or cowbells, whichever you like, Russell. We got a nice,
really?
Generous super chat from Martin. $99.99. Thank you. If you are not able to make fun of yourselves, then I can. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. That's loud.
It's double the cowbell.
Okay, you're supposed to do two cowbells, not twice as loud.
Well, but this goes to 11.
Our view counts are going to plummet now. It's 384. Now it's going to be 110 after that.
What was I thinking when I started watching this show? Who the fuck are these morons?
We probably have a lot of first-time viewers now because Matt Taibbi, our friend, was very, very kind to share Russell's article on his Substack notes. And so we got like a bunch of people signed up to our Substack newsletter, and now they're notified of our live stream. So maybe they're new to the audience, and maybe they lasted, 14 minutes and 30 seconds?
Yeah, well, if that was a deal breaker, probably best they head for the exits now, because you ain't seen nothing yet. Yeah, no, I mean, that was definitely since we started on this journey. Well, really, if you go back to the blog, it's like 4 years now. Right? If you go back to when we started writing articles,
almost 5. It'll be 5 years in March of 2024. So we have been an operation in one form or another for almost 5 years, 4.5 years about. Yep.
Yeah, having an article shared by one of my heroes in journalism is definitely a high point.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, no doubt about that. Taddy Mason, thanks for the thumbs up over on Rumble. We are able to field Rumble rants here. Jake is not with us today, but I have the window open. And so, knock on wood, as long as Rumble cooperates with us today, I should be able to field those. So thank you guys very much for being here. We have a lot to cover this morning. 421 strong in the YouTube chat. That's lovely to see. Indeed.
All right, now I can do the show.
On Rumble.
Need a little dolly.
Yes, indeed. Need a little dolly on a Friday morning. 155 in the Rumble chat, 429 now strong in the YouTube chat. Please hit that like button here. We got to work this algorithm in the morning, wake people up. This is not prime time YouTube or Rumble hours, but we will make it work for everybody, and we will get to Super Chats and Rumble rants, obviously, throughout the course of the show. Let's start out with some news. So, folks, one group that's really fallen out of the press lately, the group that has been really victimized in terms of press coverage since the Israel war broke out, have been our Orca pals. We haven't heard much about the Orcas in a while, but, you know, the Orcas, through thick and thin, no matter what's going on in the world, they keep on. These Orcas know how to keep their eye on a prize. They stay on message, they stay on focus, they stay on point. Our Orca friends are still at work. Killer whales sink yacht after 45-minute attack, Polish tour company says. And as you can see, this is dated November 6th, so we are guilty of neglecting our Orca friends too. We do not absolve ourselves of that. There's just been a lot of other stuff in the news. But since our sheep segment last Friday morning was a smash hit, we figured we would go back to the animal kingdom.
It did all right. It did
well.
right.
No, it did well. You know, honestly enough, that segment actually did pick up after I said that. Maybe the audience felt guilty for not watching the sheep, and so they went
It was a
and saw
cute segment.
It was, and it did very well on Rumble, actually. It got like 1,200 views as a clip on Rumble, which is a lot.
Well, because all the sheep fuckers are on Rumble.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
No one else will take them.
Let's go to our Orca friends here. A group of orcas managed to sink a yacht off the coast of Morocco last week after its 45-minute attack on the vessel caused irreparable damage, a Polish tour company said. The incident happened Tuesday, October 31st, Halloween, as a crew with the boat touring group sailed through the Strait of Gibraltar. Same place all this has been happening. The narrow waterway bridges the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean. See? From the river to the sea. From the sea to the ocean. From the ocean to the sea. Orcas will be free. Which separates the southern tip of the... I should have practiced that joke. I just thought of it now. So forgive the clumsy delivery. Good thought, clumsy execution. Which separates the southern tip of Europe from northern Africa. A pod of orcas, colloquially called killer whales, approached the yacht and hit the steering fin for 45 minutes, causing major damage and leakage, the tour agency Morskie Millie, which is based in Warsaw and operated the yacht, wrote on Facebook in a translated post. Although its captain and crew were assisted by a search and rescue team as well as the Moroccan Navy, the yacht could not be salvaged. So, once again, our orca friends know how to do it. They do not harm people. No one was injured or lost their life in this, thankfully, obviously.
Yep.
It's all about sending a message, not about hurting.
Well, and also this time they made their class orientation clear. We have some audio of that.
I don't need this. I don't need this working class hero crap.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we have another one.
Mr. Hooper. Been counting money all your life.
And that was the leader there, right before they sunk it.
Yeah, that was the ringleader. It sank near the entrance to the port of Tangermed, a major complex of ports some 30 miles northeast of Tangier, along the Strait of Gibraltar. None of the crew members were harmed, said the Polish tour agency, adding that those on board the sunken yacht were already safe and in Spain by the time their Facebook post went live. This yacht was the most wonderful thing in maritime sailing for all of us. Long-time friendships formed on board, wrote Morskie Millie. The company said it was involved in other upcoming cruises in the Canary Islands and would work to make sure these boat trips went ahead as planned. Last week's incident in the Strait of Gibraltar was not the first of its kind. Reported attacks by killer whales that seemed to be trying deliberately to capsize boats off the coast of Spain and Portugal have more than tripled over the last 2 years, according to data released in the spring by the research group GTOA, which studies orcas around Gibraltar. Nobody knows why this is happening. Andrew W. Trites, professor and director of marine mammal research at the University of British Columbia, told CBS News in May.
That's so neoliberal, right? Oh, why is everyone so disaffected? Why are they voting for Donald Trump, right? I mean, this is like the maritime equivalent.
Well, orcas are half black and half white, so maybe there's some confusion about their identity that's manifesting in aggressive behavior. That's possible.
That's true.
They've internalized the white supremacist side of themselves. But they are attacking mostly Europeans, mostly rich white people, so maybe that's wrong. Maybe I misdiagnosed there. My idea, what anyone would give you, is informed speculation. It's a total mystery. Unprecedented. All right, we don't have to read the whole thing. You get the point. The orcas are keeping at it. They are the most effective class warriors of our age, by far, of our era. And this has to just be like a school of orcas, whatever they call them. I don't know. Do they call them a school? Because whales aren't fish. They're mammals. So
pod?
I don't know if it's a school.
Is it a pod?
Maybe it's a pod.
I think it might be a
that
pod.
That sounds right. It's got to just be a pod of orcas that kind of trained itself.
Our
to do
audience is so smart. Somebody's going to know when they. All right, I'm looking at the chat. Is it a pod? Is it a pod? I think it's a pod.
Pod sounds right because school would be fish, but whales are not fish. I know that much. They are mammals, and so this got to just be learned behavior from a pod. They got to just be thinking they're fucking around, right? They got to just be like playing.
No, I think they've said enough is enough. This is ours. Look, this is what
boats.
this is what happened with the mob in New York. Basically, the Jews and the Italians said, you know what, you Irish, you get off the streets. You got City Hall. This is ours. So I think the orcas are saying, you got the land. This is ours. We got the ocean, and you come out here, it's not going to be good for you. All right, it's not gonna go too good for your little fucking pleasure trip.
Yeah, well, that could be.
Fuck off, Gilligan. Take the minnow, get it back to dock.
Yeah, sustained attack. A 45-minute Orca raid on a yacht. And like I said, it's very effective class-conscious protest because they did not harm any people.
Right.
Just property damage. Right.
I heard they called it in first, actually.
What's that?
I heard they called it in first.
Yeah, right. They called it in, so the cops will come.
Yep.
They're going to have to not be killer whales. They're going to have to call themselves, vandal whales or something like that. They're not living up to their reputation. We're not here to take lives.
Well, they're evolving.
That's true. They are. They are. Oh, George, over on Rumble. Thanks for the Rumble rant, oh, George. Good job on the Jimmy Dore show. Thank you. What do you guys think about asking Roger Waters to come play Tel Aviv? Oh, man, him. It'd be great. Yeah. Maybe you could put in a word with Jimmy. Maybe he can open. Thoughts? Yeah, that'd be a great show in Israel.
Did I
Jimmy
see
Dore opening for Roger Waters.
Is he allowed over there? Did I see an interview with him that he's not allowed in Israel? I'm not sure.
It wouldn't surprise me. I have not seen anything like that. But, yeah, that would be quite the double bill.
This is what I would say. If he's not... If he is allowed in Israel, the second he announced a concert, he would not be allowed there anymore.
Yeah.
They would not allow him to do a concert there now. No way.
You're coming in a little hot. Can you back that microphone like an inch away from you?
See, I never know because
that
then last time people were like, you're too quiet. That's why I pulled it in so tight.
That sounds normal to me. What does everybody think in the chat? That sounds a little better. It sounded just a little distorted.
I mean, I prefer it like that because otherwise I feel like I'm eating it.
Right. That's true. All right. Yeah, that sounds fine to me now. All right. Let's go to some super chats here. Eric Husso, member for 3 months. Thank you, Eric. Just got a ticket to Iron Maiden San Diego. October 4th of next year. Someone make Dobular an Iron Maiden number of the Beast Battle Vest. Great.
Listen, man. You know what makes me cry? You go into John Vivardo's, which is in, I mean, this is enough to make you cry. Where is that how you say it? Mm-hmm. Barbados? If you go into the old CBGBs,
yep.
John Varvatos is there. And they're selling those vintage, original, hand-painted by your friend in high school who was really good at art with acrylic paint on the back of the cutoff denim vest of Iron Maiden or Suicidal Tendencies. They're selling those for like $1,400 fucking dollars, man.
Yep. I would have guessed that's more than I would have even thought. I would have guessed $900 or $1,000.
If I had known that in high school, I would have clubbed all my friends like baby seals, stuck those in a closet for 30 years.
Yeah, who knew?
Make a fortune now.
Who knew? Hindsight 2020, as they say. Alrighty, we'll go to James Wesley Wheat. Thanks for the $5, my friend. It's so early, but worth it. Love you guys. Thank you. Wish I could give more often. Someday I'll join the Patreon and Substack. No worries. Thank you for your support.
Man, we appreciate it.
Enjoy the show. We appreciate it. Are you out on the West Coast? Is that why it's so early, or are you just not a morning person? Are you on the East Coast and it's just 9 a.m. is early? We're going to add another 9 a.m. stream once we get to 500 paid members, and we are closing in. We are knocking on the door of 450 now. So we might even start those morning streams before 2024, although with the holidays coming up, that's going to alter the schedule anyway. So, but yeah, we will add an hour-long morning stream on Thursdays at 9 a.m., only on Rumble, once we hit our member goal.
Can we say 10? Are we going to do 10?
I want to do 9 because I don't want to interfere with Kit. Because we're already interfering with Kit on Friday. I don't want to interfere with him twice. That would be kind of shitty. I feel a little bad interfering with him once a week, but he's on 5 days a week, so like we have no choice. If we want to do a morning show, we have to. But since this is going to be a 60-minute show, if we start at 9, we'll end right as he's going on. So I think that's the right thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Franklin Worsham, thanks for
I
the $4.99.
never fucked no one who didn't have it coming.
Yeah, right, exactly. Frank Worsham, thanks for the $4.99. Is Trump right about green sea technology killing the whales? What did he say? Oh, about the windmills killing the whales? I heard something about that. I never really looked into it. There's some sort of connection, apparently, between windmills and dead whales.
I mean, now we have a motive.
That's true. Now we have a motive. That is true. That is true. Alrighty, folks. We'll take some more super chats in a little while, but let's go to segment number 2.
Just wait. It's like gonna hit in like 60 seconds.
Oh, that's right. All right. Well,
all right. Come on. 2 more people watch. 2 more people watch. Come on.
I'll take one more. Rod New. Beautiful.
There we go.
I hope I'm saying that right, Rod. Some people told us in the chat last time that NG means what? The G is just silent or no? I'm sorry. I have to look that up because it comes up a lot. 67% of Americans support a ceasefire. Only 19 members of Congress. The Biden administration called this view despicable. Are we still in a democracy? No, of course. I mean, that's a main point that a lot of people are making. Like, they're acting as if this is some sort of out of left field demand. It's a perfectly mainstream demand. Yeah.
Right. They're trying to make it as if it's fringe. They're exaggerating the numbers that were at the Israel lobby rally there, the Million Murderer March the other day in D.C. I've seen 300, then they back down to 200. Now they're like tens of thousands, which, look, I mean, you've seen the pictures. There were a lot of people there. But when they had a rally for Palestine, there were a lot of people worldwide, not in one city, in one country on the East Coast, which has the largest concentration of Jews outside of Israel, which unfortunately, and as we'll see in the video I shot at Columbia, that is a hijacking of Judaism. As I can say, as a victim of Hebrew school, the Zionists have infiltrated all of the Hebrew schools, and they give the impression to Jewish children that Zionism and Judaism are the same thing. But as you'll see in that video, there are a lot of Jews, rabbis, who consider that an affront to their religion, Zionism.
Yeah, Russell put together a great video. He shot some footage at a rally outside Columbia University. We're going to play that at the end of the show. That's our last segment. But let's move along here to segment number 2. Brianna Joy Gray interviewed Ralph Nader, who spilled some tea about the Green Party and Cornel West's decision to run ultimately as an independent. Now, Nader is 89. He doesn't get out much, and so apparently he doesn't like appearing on camera. So we hear the phone version of his side of the conversation. There's audio with a nice portrait there, but this was on the Bad Faith podcast, which dropped earlier this week.
Well, at the beginning, he says, I just don't know what to do with my hair.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So they thought better put a portrait up. Here's Ralph Nader on Brianna Joy Gray.
Last question about something that was in one of the interviews. I think it was in one of the articles. I think it was in the story about Cornel West. It described you as actually advising Dr. West to run as an independent as opposed to on the Green Party ticket. And I wondered about that advice and what you make of his departure from the Greens. That'll be my last horse race question for you.
Well, I know Cornel West. He's not an organizational person. He likes to be free and clear. You get involved in Green Party politics, as I know from firsthand. There's a lot of internal bickering. You got to travel here and travel there to put out the conflict flames and the debilitating process.
What he alluded to that, but it's hard for me to
All right, let me stop here. There's just 2 points I want to interject very, very quickly. Number 1, when Brianna says you wanted him to run as an independent and not a Green. It's not clear based on this conversation when they had a discussion about where he was going to run. Did Ralph Nader get in touch with him after he had switched to the Greens and said, hey, you should drop them and run independent? That would be a story because as we covered a couple months ago on the show, Nader has been trying to get in touch with the Biden campaign to offer them advice on how to defeat Trump. And so if Nader's trying to get Cornel from the Greens to independent, which would strip him of ballot access, as Brianna will bring up in a moment, that would be a little suspicious. But then the second thing about how, well, running with the Greens involves a lot of traveling and engagements. Okay, well, running for president involves traveling and engagements. Like, if you're not willing to play the game a little bit, then don't play at all. Like, part of having a party infrastructure means being willing to go through that bullshit. And if the whole theory of the case for the Cornel campaign is that you have a huge name coming into a small organization, which means you should be able to overpower whatever bureaucratic obstacles are in your way with the people you're bringing into the organization to flood out whatever naysayers may be in there because you don't want trans, swimmers and whatever the fuck they had a problem with. Right. So, like, that's the idea. That's the idea. So this excuse just doesn't pass muster with me. Well, it would have been a lot of traveling and engagements and, there were a lot of hoops to jump through. You're running for president, man. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. You got to do appearances. You got to do lectures.
Cornel, it's much easier if you're running as an independent. You just have to go on a few podcasts.
It's easier to run a fake campaign than a real campaign.
It's much easier than to try to get votes. And also, you can still go on CNN when it's all over.
Exactly right. Running for president is hard. It's easier to just pretend you're running for president, do podcast interviews, and stay out of the way. All right, let's keep going.
Understand what that looks like and why that's such a seemingly indelible feature of the Green Party.
Well, I've tried it many, many days and months at Green Party fundraisers to bring them together. The problem with the Green Party is they're upper middle class, most of them. I'm not saying they're rich, but they're not part of the, hard scrabble blue collar class.
Oh, you think?
And they're not hurting that much. And as a result, they don't have an energy level. They don't have enough fire in their belly. They have flaming rhetoric, and it's very well substantiated by the facts in the country. I'll grant them that. They have the best agenda of any political party in the country by far on foreign, military, and domestic policy. But if you can't field thousands of local candidates, you're not going to build a party. If you can't raise money for full-time staff around the country, you're not going to build the party. And they haven't gotten around to figure out how to do that. They also don't like leadership. If you don't like leadership, you just work on consensus and navel-gazing, you're never going to find the leaders in one area after another of your political movement who can really push the envelope and break through the two-party duopoly.
All right, so that's a good insight. I mean, good on him for saying that because he's right. I mean, from our observations of the Greens, that checks out completely. He's dealt with the Greens quite a bit, obviously. Maybe part of the reason they're such an organizational mess is because they can afford to be an organizational mess.
Right.
They don't have to organize the working class. They're not in the working class.
Right. They're playing politics. It's a game. It's a game. And that's why, we do know that this happened. We don't know that this is why he left the Greens, but you alluded to this, that they wanted to have a sit down with him to fix his position on trans athletes. And man, it always reminds me of the line.
That was their exact language, by the way. That wasn't Russell's interpretation. They literally said, we have to fix his view on this.
Yes. It reminds me of the line in Platoon. Man, you got to be rich to think like that in the first place.
Right.
You're talking this existential struggle against the forces of capital, and you want to talk to him about that?
Whoa,
that's the deal breaker.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, any so-called left party that prioritizes something like that as a deal breaker, you got to be rich to think like that in the first place, man. I mean, maybe not Bezos rich, but you're rich relative to the people that your policies are supposed to be aimed at. And this is why I talked about this a little bit on RBN, because we talked about they really avoid culture stuff like the plague. And they said playfully to me, well, I think you enjoy it, you find it entertaining. I said, no, man, being from the working class, I know what a turnoff it is. Like, I know you're never getting working class people behind you with people like that leading the way. As soon as they show up, they're going to be like, oh, look at these fucking people, man. It's that you're not from where we're from. It's that class thing. You smell like bosses. You don't smell like workers.
Right, exactly. There's one more piece of this that is definitely worth playing, because this last thing that he says is quite maddening, I think.
Well, I guess the question people have is all of those taking completely at face value all of those criticisms of the Green Party. It seems like there's even less of that if you're a part of no party, if you're running fully as an independent. And while there are some upsides, polling suggests that generic independent candidate does many, many times better than generic libertarian or generic Green Party candidate, there also is the question of ballot access, not having any infrastructure whatsoever. And if Cornel West is not an infrastructure person, well, does that also cut both ways? Is he going to be able to independently build the infrastructure that he needs and to fundraise all that he needs to get on the ballot and make any kind of real impact?
Well, he needs to hire half a dozen good people who know how to get on a ballot, and he needs to raise enough money to do that, to get on maybe, as he said, 25, 30 states. That gets you credible.
Easy.
This isn't about getting, decisive vote totals. This is about agenda.
Let's play that part again. This isn't about getting decisive vote totals.
30 states. That gets you credible. This isn't about getting, decisive vote totals. This is about agenda. This is about articulating where this country should go domestically and in the world. And Cornel West does a beautiful job on that.
This isn't about getting decisive vote totals. This is about an agenda, articulating an agenda. This is the part of this that's infuriating. This is the part of this that I was concerned about from day one. And this has been my answer to people who were like, yeah, well, Cornel, he's not really serious, but it's still good that he's getting the message out. This is not the year to get the message out. And this speaks to what he said earlier about how they have no organizational skills or no desire to organize better. Every third party after Biden won in 2020 should have been eyeing 2024 as their opportunity to pounce. Pounce meaning make a major impact, because as soon as Biden won, it became very likely, since we all pretty much knew Trump was going to run again, that 2024 was going to be a rematch of two failed presidents, which creates a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I forget when it was. This happened once before in American history, the 1890s, where a candidate lost their re-election campaign and came back and ran again and lost again. This never happens. You never get an opportunity like this if you're a third party. This is the time to actually get decisive vote totals. If there's one election in your life where you have to organize as a third party behind decisive vote totals as your goal, it's this one. This is not 2012. Look, if you want to run an issues campaign in most years, okay, fine, God bless, whatever. This is not the year to do that. If you're a third party, if you are serious about wielding power, about obtaining and wielding power and organizing working people's power, you had to view this cycle as a once-in-a-lifetime chance to do it. And what an unbelievable wasted opportunity to come into this with the same old idea of we're just here to raise issues. That speaks to a lack of seriousness. And, Ralph Nader, he made an incisive point just a minute ago where he says the Greens aren't serious about organizing. Well, I'm sorry, Ralph, if you only see this as a messaging campaign, then you're not serious about organizing either. Because this cycle, as we know, creates a historic opportunity for third parties. RFK's polling over 20% already. Cornel, before he did all this shit, he was polling at 8 or 9%. His polling collapsed once it became obvious that he wasn't actually running, because of all these stupid moves he's made. But you were in a position to actually get decisive vote totals and actually influence the outcome and actually disrupt the system. And to punt that football away and say, well, we're just here to raise issues, It is a shame and a shameful waste of a historic opportunity.
Yeah, this keeps reminding me of the old show and serial, The Little Rascals, where they'd get together and put on a show in a barn. And that was the joke, how
Right,
amateurish
exactly, yeah.
the show would be. That's what this is like. Hey, guys, let's put on an election. Let's put on a campaign.
Right.
It's just so amateurish. And you got to wonder, you know, those of you who watch the show know that I tend to apply Occam's razor to conspiracy theories. I tend to feel that all the conspiracies are out in the open. There's no requirement for a secret one to explain the way our country runs. They pretty openly is run by oligarchs and billionaires. But I got to say, man, do these guys get threatened? You know what's giving more credibility for me to that idea? The fact that those people who came out in with the Biden letter that were in the administration stayed anonymous, and one of the reasons they said was they feared for their physical safety.
Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean?
That's true. They said it. They put in writing, hey, we don't want to go public with our identities because we not only fear professional repercussions, but we fear for our personal safety. They admitted that.
That makes me wonder, do guys like Nader, do guys like Cornel get a call? Hey, nice heartbeat you got there. Be a shame if it stopped.
I don't think so. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think the State Department is a different world than third-party politics. I think, look, this is why the Cornel campaign seemed too good to be true at the outset. This is why, as much as I supported him early on, because he's a big name and because I thought, okay, finally a third party picked a star. They had a chance to pick Ventura last time. They forfeited that. They finally have a star. Let's see if we can make this happen. It always seemed too good to be true because he never seemed to, and Ralph Nader said this.
I don't know, man.
Ralph Nader said he's not an organizational person. He doesn't have that kind of mind. He has a brilliant mind, but not for this. That's what I think it is.
Yes, probably. It goes back to my von Clausewitz quote, which I'm sure you know very well by now.
Yeah.
There are no contradictions. When you think you found a contradiction, check your premises.
But you could apply that to this too.
All these smart people are this incredibly stupid whenever it comes to actually accomplishing what they claim is their life's work of challenging the system. Really, there's nobody that sees what you and I see. There's nobody that sees the opening and opportunity. There's nobody there saying, okay, this is the time to set aside any grievances and grudges. This is the time to get the People's Party, the Green Party, the Libertarian Party. It's time we all get on the same page, because if there was ever a year we could break the duopoly, this is the year. Like, nobody sees that. Nobody tries to do that in any way or form. In fact, everyone does absolutely everything possible to sabotage the effort. And that's not intentional. I'm sorry, man. I mean, yeah, you could be right. You probably are. But at this point, I have to think that these people intentionally miss the target and pretend it's because they're too stupid to see where the target is.
Well, it depends on what you mean by repercussions. Like, do all these people get phone calls from shadowy characters saying, you better stand down? Maybe, but it could also be the case that they just fear repercussions more broadly, right? Not being welcome in professional circles, not getting called to appear on CNN
and that
anymore,
is what I
losing tenure at their jobs. Like, there are all kinds of...
That's what I have been saying about Cornel, but Nader? Why? What is he? He's fucking 89, man. Every fucking day could be his last.
Well, no, he has Trump derangement syndrome now. I mean, that's what that explains it for him. He's been saying he wants to advise Biden. Look, society is this giant implicit threat against anybody who tries to disrupt it, right? There are all sorts of ways where your apple cart can be upended. Exactly. It's a beehive. And so, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that those incentives aren't there, but it doesn't have to be that they get phone calls from people. Like, you know what I mean?
Seth Rich.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Aspen Fallen, thanks for the $5. Half black and half white. You'd think orcas would be Obama voters then. Yeah, right. Thank you. Eric Rousseau, thanks for the $5. Orcas are working with the aliens. Where is Captain Kirk and Spock? Voyage home. Trump Space Force Red alert.
Eric, I got you. Did Keaton get that? Did you get that, Keaton?
No, but I could tell what he was referencing. I mean, I don't know the reference, but I could see what he's going for, even if I don't quite understand.
That was Star Trek 4. That was the plot of Star Trek 4. They had to go back in time to find a whale because they were extinct in the future in order to stop this probe that was going to destroy the Earth if it didn't get an answer from a whale.
Oh, wow. Interesting. 907 in YouTube chat, 286 in Rumble chat. Let's keep plugging away at this, folks. Let's hit that like button. Let's get some people in here. Appreciate that. This is a Rumble rant from Christian Fortin. Post left and right. Let's spell it out. Altruism versus exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
One loves humans and the universe. Harmony and the common good. The other is hungry for money and power. Driven by selfishness and destruction. Yes, that's a good point. Thank you.
Well, this is where we have to get away from our leaders because, as you've seen now, yeah, we like to think that. We like to think we're all on the same page, but look what happened with Israel. Look at how all these free speech people on the right all of a sudden are pro-censorship. But I do not believe, I want to see, there must be some breakdowns now of Republican opinions about Gaza. Because I can't imagine that the rank and file Republicans or MAGA people or what's generally thought of as the right are as supportive of this as their leadership is.
Yeah, we have a super chat actually about that from our friend McDougal, which we're going to get to in just a second. Let me just pull this up here. We have one more. Paul Chu. Putin, leave those orcas alone. Oh, yes. Thank you, Paul Chu. And yeah, McDougal says here, morning, fellas, your favorite member of the MAGA delegation. Hey, did you sign up for the Patreon yet? I'm going to keep bugging you about it because it wouldn't cost you any money. You would just, if you wanted to join Patreon for $8 a month, you could join $8 a month and then make this super chat $2. Boom. There you go. Hasn't cost you a dime.
That's
right?
it. And then we know where our next bowl of Hamantashen is coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Your favorite member of the MAGA delegation here for my weekly outreach. Remember when I told you all the right isn't really on board with the Israel situation? Schism will keep widening. Yeah, that's what Russell was just saying. So thank you for that.
That's what I suspect because it's so inconsistent. With MAGA has definitely led by Trump's signal. They picked up a kind of conservative, libertarian, anti-war reflex. And Trump himself, I think, is out of tune with his own base on this.
Yeah, well, that is one thing that I was thinking about this last night. That is one thing that's scary about Trump coming back to power. Not that it's any scarier than Biden coming back to power, so don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to make a Thomas Frank argument here. But Trump's...
Yeah, you have to fucking poke the sore spot.
I have to poke that. Yeah, Trump's bluster and bravado fused with a neocon foreign policy agenda. Yeah, that's pretty scary. Like, what's less scary about Trump is that he doesn't share the neocon foreign policy. But if he gets sucked into that combined with his style of politics, yeah, that's serious shit. That's no joke.
That's World War III overnight.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got to hold the line, which means you guys over at the MAGA delegation have to hold the line and hold his feet to the fire. You have to pressure him the same way that, I mean, we're past pressuring Biden. We're not voting for him. But you have to make clear, if you're serious over there, McDougal, that you won't vote for him if he doesn't signal that he will de-escalate.
One of
That's
the
the
people
deal I'll make with you.
One of the people lobbying for us to interview Dr. Shiva tagged me in probably you too, in a Twitter post where I will say this: that Shiva guy is a funny motherfucker. He was using your favorite word there to describe the way that, shall we say,
I know,
the Republicans are filleting the Zionists.
Yeah, I know.
It was a pretty funny video. I did appreciate it.
Oh yeah, he uses that word a lot. He uses that word a whole lot. All right, where are we at? Okay, let's go to segment number 3 on the day. We have more super chats and Rumble rants to read. We will get to all of them, so thank you very much. There was a hot date on the Piers Morgan show last night between Rabbi Shmuley and Mohammad Hijab. Is it Hijab or Hijab? I think it's Hijab. Sorry, I should have written that down. But this was quite something. This was an hour long. This was really, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you guys. This is more spectacle than seriousness, because the debate was...
It's very Three Stooges.
Yeah, this was like an early episode of the Do Dissidents podcast. Just two irritable people screaming over each other for an hour. That's basically what this was, with a moderator present. So here they are debating whether Israel is committing genocide, and here is Rabbi Shmuley challenging Mohammad on the definition of the term itself.
Definition. What I said, if you do, you always claim to be an academic. You're always touting your Oxford credentials. What is the definition? All right,
conditional.
Genocide. Genocide is where. Genocide is where. Genocide is where you target an ethnicity for extinction. Ethnicity side murder.
Yes, if you do it. If you kill 3 million Palestinians, are you genocide or not? If you kill 3 million Palestinians, are you genocide or not?
Don't speak over each other.
This was an hour. This exact.
It was pretty much. I watched half of it, and I was like, all right.
This went on for an hour.
There's just nothing here to really.
It's an absolutely unhinged, quote unquote, debate.
8 million Muslim Arabs who live in total peace in Israel as equal citizens. In fact, Israel practiced reverse discrimination against the Jews because the Jews are conscripted to fight Hamas. So, Israel.
There's a point. All right, we were finally able to glean a complete thought there. So there's Rabbi Shmuley saying that actually the Jews practice reverse discrimination against themselves in Israel because Arabs are not conscripted into the IDF to fight Hamas. So he's arguing there. He's actually arguing that you're better off being an Arab in Israel than you are being a Jew. That's what he's arguing.
Well, and also not touching on the reasons why they probably exempt Arabs. It is probably a question of their loyalty. So in the end, that is more of a demonstration of apartheid than a vindication of their system.
Yes.
Excuse me. No, you will not interrupt me. If Israel, you will not interrupt me. You will not interrupt me. You will not interrupt me. You will not bully me. You will not interrupt me. I am not afraid of you. Stop saying the Jews tremble. Now, let me be clear. Let me be clear.
If you shout over each other.
Well, then you need to control your guests with all due respect. Okay, he said
need to control both.
Wise guy, eh?
If Israel was interested in a genocide of the Palestinians, why do they have 1.8 million equal Arab Muslim citizens who are in the Israeli Supreme Court, who are 1/3 of the medical profession? Do you know that an Arab judge put the president of Israel in jail for accused rape? That was Moshe Katsav. That's how.
Oh, is that right? This is very similar to the argument, hey, Ukraine doesn't have a Nazi problem. Their president is Jewish. How could they have a Nazi problem?
Right.
And as Russell says,
except for all the Nazis,
they have these Arabs in Israel that they use as tokens for specifically when they're confronted on things like this. Russell, you were talking about that.
Exactly, yeah. These are the descendants, and in some cases, the actual original residents who managed to hold on to their land through the Nakba. And they use these people as a shield against accusations of being an apartheid state. But what I wish the guest would have asked him is, so what if a Palestinian marries an Israeli? Can they get citizenship?
Right. They still don't have full citizenship rights, which is why probably they're not conscripted to fight. Because how do you make someone fight for your army when they're not a full citizen?
Right. I mean, well, there's another question. Why don't you draft Arabs? Because that would be very interesting to have him. Why? Well, because if you say, well, it's a form of reparations for what? For what? I thought you haven't done anything to the Palestinians. I thought you haven't done anything wrong to the Arabs. So what would you be giving them some kind of relief for? And if it's not that, then what is it? If it's not it's not a question of their loyalty, not trusting their loyalties, why would you not conscript them if they're full citizens just like any Jew? Why would they be exempted? So he's actually pointing out he's telling on himself, but this guest, frankly, from watching this, he wasn't smart enough to jump into that. And I didn't think he was very good.
No. I mean, this was designed. I mean, I love how Piers Morgan goes on, I think you both did yourself a disservice here. Please. Like, you didn't want this to go down exactly the way it does because it's going to get clicks because conflict drives views. Like, Piers Morgan's a two-faced asshole,
Folks, It's the Buddy Road movie you didn't know you wanted.
Exactly. No, we brought on these two because we were looking for a civil discussion. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Israel's an apartheid state, genocidal state. This man sitting next to me, Mohammad Hijab, will not distinguish between self-defense when Hamas comes to brutalize and murder your people versus when an army like Britain, like France, stops, retaliates to simply protect their citizens. You don't believe the Jews should have a right to defend themselves? Say it outright then say it.
The Jews have the right to defend themselves.
They do.
Yes, they do.
So that's why we have to go.
Everybody has a right to defend themselves.
That's why we have to go into Gaza.
Wow. There you go. And the other question I would ask, because they're trying to litigate the definition of genocide, is if they're not committing a genocide, then why are they carpet bombing refugee camps? Why are they laying siege upon hospitals? Why are they forcing the displacement of 1 million people in northern Gaza? Francesca Albanese said in her press conference, which we covered on Wednesday, she said the very order to evacuate is illegal. Okay, so there are terrorists living amongst you. That doesn't give you the right to forcibly relocate 1 million civilians. Hamas has 25,000 people in it. You're going to forcibly relocate and displace 1 million people? Just that displacement is going to come with a lot of death down the road. We learned that in the Iraq War, right? Only a couple 100,000 Iraqis were killed in combat. Hundreds of thousands more died as a result of having their entire lives upended. These are not people of great means, right? Forcing people who don't have much to begin with to literally not even pack up and leave. They can't pack up. They have to just leave. They walk with their hands up 7 kilometers south. So that's going to cause a lot of death down the road, too. What gives you the right to do that because you're hunting down 25,000 terrorists? What gives you the right to forcibly remove 1 million people from their homes? That is collective punishment. Now, he wants to play lawyer games and talk genocide. I would call that genocide. But the way you get around those lawyer games is you say, listen, I'm not going to play semantical games with you. Is it justified to forcibly displace 1 million people in order to find 25,000? Or is that collective punishment? Is that a war crime? Because he has no answer for that. There's no way to wiggle out of that.
Well, this is why I say this guy wasn't very good. Because he kept trying to fall back on conditional statements and premises rather than you're already in violation of international law. You're already in gross violation of international law. Forced relocation is a violation of international law. Exactly. By definition. Exactly. And he never did that. He wanted to argue on the ground of if Israel keeps killing 100 Palestinians for every one Hamas terrorist that they actually get to, then it will be a genocide because you'll kill 3 million. And I think that's weaker ground than to argue this is a gross violation of international law. It's already a war crime. It is already fits the definition of genocide, what is being done to the Palestinian people. He was too reserved, and he was too debate team in the way he went about this.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's totally fair to say.
There's not the Oxford Union.
Exactly.
There's Piers Morgan. It's a blood sport, man. Take this guy apart.
It's tabloid TV. It's basically New York Post TV, right? And that's what it was designed to be. Folks, you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and become a supporting member of our program here. In doing so, you get your name up in lights on the show credits. Those who joined between Wednesday and Friday, we don't have Jake on these morning shows, so you will be on the scroll on Sunday. But you get your name up in lights here. You also get your name in the end credits of our upcoming Jose Vega documentary. You also get call-in access to our Sunday Q&A. So this Sunday night, November 19th, there will be a post-show Q&A on Rumble in which you will have call-in access to. And you also get 2 Patreon exclusive streams per month. I think we're going to do one next week because there's a couple of different stories that we can't talk about here. There's one huge story. I won't say what it is. You know what I'm talking about. There's a huge story going around that you notice no YouTubers have touched because they can't. But we will do that probably on the Patreon show whenever it comes up again. But that will come up early next week. We're thinking we'll come out with a date on that on Sunday. But you get access to 2 exclusive streams per month, as well as call-in access to the live stream. So we make it worth your while, and one way to make it worth everybody's while is we are now closing in on 450 paid members. So we are getting awfully close, folks, to that 500 paid member goal, which will enable us to do a 4th weekly stream. That will be an uncensored 1 hour long live stream on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. over on Rumble. We will add that stream as soon as we can afford to do that. We need 500 paid members in order to afford to do that stream. Once we do that, we will make that happen. So go to patreon.com/do-dissidents to sign up. There are a couple of other options that you have as well. You can go to our Substack and sign up as a paid member there. That gets you the same perks as becoming a Patreon member. We've had a lot of new members on Substack recently, thanks in no small part to Matt Taibbi giving us a plug over there on Substack Notes. So thank you, Matt. Thank you so much. You can also go to dodissidents.locals.com, which is integrated with Rumble. So we have 325 of you fine people in the Rumble chat right now. You can click that Locals link and sign up as a member on Locals. Substack and Locals have free options, so you can follow us there as like a newsletter. But if you sign up as a paid member, you get all those perks, and you get us closer to launching a 4th stream. Think about it. If there are 4 shows a week, that means most days out of the year you will have a Do Dissidents live stream to tune into. Yeah. Think about that. How cool would that be?
And that's going to be on Rumble. So you will hear the jokes that we make to each other and say, we better not say that on the show.
Exactly. Yeah.
When we're planning the shows.
We'll just record our phone calls and make those the show.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So those will be a lot of fun. Those will be a lot of fun. We cannot wait to do those. But we are not independently wealthy. We can only do those if we can afford to. So we need 50 more. Come on, we can get there. 50 more people sign up. Substack, Patreon, or Locals, and we will make that happen.
I had a Richie Torres joke for the Million Murderer March that would have killed.
Would have killed. Yeah, indeed. But, we think of a lot of them. That will be a lot of fun, that Rumble stream. That'll be a big hit, I think. We also have, Russell set this up, even though it's in my name here, a Give, Send, Go, which is an ongoing fundraiser for special projects. We are pretty much done with the Jose Vega documentary. We're holding the release because he has a major announcement that he's going to make early next year, and so it just doesn't make sense to drop that before. Makes sense to integrate that into the film. So that's one special project. We have some other ideas coming down the pike that we need resources for. Russell went out and did that special report at Columbia University. Now, we're pretty much restricted to our immediate area when it comes to covering protests and mass actions. If we can get a little kitty going for special projects, we can travel a little further away, maybe to Washington, D.C., right, for actions over there to film those, document those, and mix it up with the regular folks.
I really want to go down there for those.
Exactly. So to help us out in our special projects fund, you can go to givesendgo.com/do-dissidents. Give, Send, Go has been pretty cool about free speech. They are advertising on Rumble, which is a good sign. That makes us feel secure in that. We did our previous fundraiser with GoFundMe, and since they screwed the gray zone, we are boycotting them in principle. So givesendgo.com/do-dissidents to chip into our recurring special projects fundraiser. That gives us the opportunity to, hey, big action in D.C. next week. Should we get an Amtrak, and go down there and, maybe get a hotel for the night or stay overnight if we have to do multiple days? All that stuff costs some money. And so this fund will be specifically for special projects like that. That this does not go to our salary, okay? So it is specifically for special projects.
Doesn't go to our hookers, doesn't go to our blow.
Exactly.
That is just for that. And
Substack is set aside for that, right?
Yes, that's the hookers and blow fund. Which, hey, we need that too. So don't forget to sign up at Substack.
Substack too.
But I am just going to say, and look, there's not a dig. We have a lot of religious people in our audience, which it blows my mind. Amazing to me. Shows religious people have more of a sense of humor than they're often given credit for. Indeed. But given the world that I grew up in, where Jerry Falwell was the censorious person always going and starting court fights and that kind of thing, and the left were the liberals were the freedom of speech people. The idea that we're taking refuge under the banner of a deeply Christian organization because they're the anti-censorship people, we're just living in a world I could never have imagined when I was coming up, man. That you'd go to the Christians because they're not going to censor you.
No, exactly. They don't censor, and they embrace actually the best elements of Christianity, which is giving and selflessness, because Give, Send, Go doesn't even take a cut. They give their fundraisers everything they raise. They take their money. They make their money based. They have donors who donate to their site and their project. And so they give fundraisers 100% of proceeds. So you don't got to worry about fees coming out and people taking a cut. Yeah, good. It's a good organization, and now they're advertising on Rumble, which means they must have a free speech commitment. Otherwise, Rumble wouldn't do it. They wouldn't
Human
see Rumble as
sacrifice,
their
dogs
audience.
and cats living together, mass hysteria.
So Give, Send, Go, /Do Dissidents to contribute there. So thank you guys very much. We'll take some super chats, and then we will move on. We got plenty more show today. Thanks for the $5. Skyzar, how exactly is a no ceasefire position convenient for either Israel or Biden? I'm truly lost. Well, right now, the fighting is pretty one-sided. That's why it's not convenient for Israel, because Israel wants to displace the people of Gaza and claim that land. Right?
Exactly.
They've already gotten the ratio of casualties up to normal. 1,400 was the original number. As Aaron Mate pointed out to Chris Coons, it seems like the actual number is more like 1,200, and it seems like about a third of those were actually military personnel. But without nitpicking, let's say it's 1,400. Now there's over 11,000 Palestinians killed, almost half of which are kids. And so as of now, the no ceasefire position would be inconvenient to Israel because it fucks up their plan. Their plan is to clear that place out by any means necessary.
They want to make it unlivable.
Exactly.
This is, I tell you, there is a Hebrew word for establishing facts in the field, which basically the meaning is identical to our English phrase, better to ask forgiveness than permission. Right? That's the essence of the idea. It seems like they're trying to make Gaza so unlivable that they can move people out of Gaza under the guise of it being a humanitarian effort. Right? There have been rumors that Egypt is already being offered money and aid by the United States to take this. And then they can say, well, in going after Hamas, the infrastructure has been so damaged. We have to move the people temporarily out into refugee camps in the desert, and they can come back later, and then they'll just never bring them back. That's what I think their end game is. And I'm not just speculating. This was that white paper that came out from their government that leaked.
Of course. Yep.
But if you look at what they're doing, it's consistent with that paper.
Exactly. Shinabilly, thank you for the $5. Why isn't Bree standing for Marianne anymore? She is a little bit. She tweeted out something the other day like Marianne was polling at like 12%, and she's like, see, why isn't she getting more attention than the Republicans who are challenging Trump? Yeah, so, a little bit. She's backed off a little, but not entirely. Charlie, thanks for the $5. Hey, Russ, my hometown pizza is Coliseo Pizza in Port Jeff, Long Island. Best Sicilian slice ever. White is amazing, too. All right, interesting.
All right. It's on the island, so you have a valid claim.
You have a valid claim.
Some motherfucker being like, I live in Jacksonville. I'm going to be like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, Jacksonville, Florida. Best pizza in America.
Pizza.
Pete Sweet, thanks for the $10. CNN Jewish broadcaster Jake Tapper with Bash, Bitterman, Black Blitzer, Berman, and Bernstein, Bolden, Bolger, Brownstein, Burke, and these just the bees not disclosed they are Jewish when commenting. Well, I mean, Tapper, look, they that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't think they should necessarily have to disclose that because, like we said, I think Zionism, as you'll see from more reputable sources than us, from rabbis, that Zionism is a bastardization of Judaism. That's not to say that a lot of Jews tend to be pro-Israel, obviously. That's a fact, for sure. But to the point where they should have to disclose that, I think that plays too much into the stereotype that all Jews support Israel, and that you must, and that becomes a danger as well. Willie Bragg, thanks, Willie Bragg. How are you? The Green Party is the biggest game in town outside the Democrats on the left, and Cornel West made a huge mistake running as an independent. Well, exactly. Like, their infrastructure is still the most built out. So if you wanted to make an impact, you do what the fuck you got to do. Go to the debates, do the forums, hear out the Queer Caucus people and say, okay, yeah, sure, okay, fine, and then just don't take their advice and win the primary anyway. Right? Like, the whole point of the Cornel campaign is that you're a big enough name where you can flood the organization with Cornel West supporters, not Green Party supporters. Right. You could hijack the party. You could take it over. And, choosing not to do that, as Willie suggests there, is correct, taking himself out of the game. So thank you, Willie, for that. Shina Billy, we'll take one more, and then we will do next segment, and then we'll get to more Super Chats, obviously, down the road. Shina Billy, thanks for the $5. Norm called out Piers, and apparently Piers said he's going to have Norm on. That'll be one to watch. Yeah.
That will be, yes. That would be very
I wonder if he'll fly Norm out to London, because he usually wants the guests in studio. Not
studio,
always,
right.
but most of the time.
Well, I'm not a good flyer. And a lot of the food there does not agree with me. You are not known for your cuisine in that country.
Now, you're buying me a ticket. Does that cover a carry-on, or am I going to have to pay extra to check that?
Where is the hotel? Because it can be very rough over there.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to segment number 4. Here's an interesting story. Palestinians sue Biden for failing to prevent genocide in Gaza. The federal lawsuit accuses President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin of complicity in genocide. A group of Palestinian human rights organizations, residents of Gaza, and U.S. citizens with family members impacted by Israel's ongoing assault jointly sued President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin on Monday for failing to prevent an unfolding genocide. I apologize if people can hear my dog going crazy. Can anybody hear that?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah. You know why my dog's going crazy? I'll cut this out of the segment when we edit it, but there's a stray cat that is walking around out there that we left out some food and a blanket for because it's kind of chilly.
Well, now it's going to keep coming back. You know that.
Well, our neighbors did it too. Well, no, I mean, we're happy to help the stray cat. I don't regret doing it, but part of the pain in the ass of that is every once in a while it comes around to eat, and when my dog, senses it out there, she goes nuts. So forgive the dog. The 89-page lawsuit filed by the Center for Constitutional Rights in a California federal district court traces 75 years of history and analyzes acts committed and rhetoric espoused by the Israeli government that exhibit a disregard for international law. It is accompanied by a declaration from a genocide expert who describes Israel's actions as signs of genocide and argues that the Biden administration has breached its duty under international law to prevent it. Quote, under international law, the United States has a duty to take all measures available to it to prevent a genocide. Yet, defendants have repeatedly refused to use their obvious and considerable influence to set conditions or place limits on Israel's massive bombing and total siege of Gaza, the lawsuit reads. Despite escalating evidence of Israeli policies directed at inflicting mass harm to the Palestinian population in Gaza, the Biden administration has opposed, quote, a life-saving ceasefire and lifting of the siege, even vetoing the United Nations measures calling for a ceasefire, the lawsuit continues. Instead, their actions to fund, arm, and endorse Israel's mass and devastating bombing campaign and total siege of the Palestinians in Gaza constitutes a failure to prevent an unfolding genocide and complicity in its development. Okay, we have a few more things to read here, but I'll take a quick break. So the case that they are establishing is that not only is the United States not doing anything to stop this, but that they are empowered to act to stop this, which we know that they are, and they are choosing not to. So they are actively complicit in what's going on, which obviously I think is an airtight case.
Well, okay, so this is the question, and this is why we need Glenn to come on the show. Glenn, call us. Do they have standing? Because my understanding is you cannot sue the government. You cannot sue individuals in the government for actions they take in their capacity as members of the government. You can prosecute for crimes, but that goes through Congress, right? I mean, that's impeachment. I'm not clear on whether there is a venue through which you can do this. Like, is it, in other words, does this go beyond the PR stunt? Can you actually establish standing in court to do this?
Likely not, but it's an interesting angle to take to get the message out there for sure. The plaintiffs traced their case back to the 1948 Nakba, Israel's displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, and up to the present day to demonstrate Israel's persistent violations of human rights and international law. The lawsuit notes that in September, for example, just weeks before Hamas's attack on Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held up a map before the UN General Assembly titled The New Middle East that totally erased the existence of Palestine. So yes, the point of this is to build a case, to give some rhetorical ammunition to people when they go and argue this issue more broadly, because you can absolutely build the case, as they do here, that the, ironically, elimination of Palestine as an entity, much less a formal state, has been the goal of the Israeli state going back to 1948, and the goal of the Zionist project going back even further than that. The lawsuit also presents a meticulous timeline from October 7th up to November 8th, detailing the scale of violence Israel has inflicted upon Gaza, including its siege and bombing campaign that has now displaced nearly 2 million Palestinians and killed over 11,000. It details Israel's target during the military campaign, including repeat bombings of refugee camps and hospitals, and statements by Israeli officials that demonstrate a disregard for international law. The emphasis is on damage and not on accuracy. That is a quote from who? IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari on October 10th when discussing the, quote, hundreds of tons of bombs Israel had already dropped by then. Human animals must be treated as such. There will be no electricity and no water in Gaza. There will only be destruction, said Israeli Major General Ghassan Alian. Sorry if I got that name wrong. You wanted hell, you will get hell. That is a threat against the people of Gaza.
World's most moral army.
Exactly.
The world's most moral army. And you see, if you listen to Zionists talk, a big part of their batshit crazy framing is that they are better than their enemy because they're so humane and decent and never celebrate death and horror, and they don't commit acts of cruelty for their own sake. You know, they're always so careful to try to spare civilian life. I mean, it's just amazing what these people are brainwashed into convincing themselves of. When the evidence, I mean, it's not hard to find.
Well, this is why the case can be made for genocide, because look at those two quotes. Emphasis on damage over accuracy, and human animals must be treated as such. No electricity, no water. That's not no electricity, no water for Hamas. That's no electricity or water in Gaza. That's collective punishment. The goal, like those two quotes are not targeted at enemy combatants. Those two quotes are targeted at civilian populations. Damage over accuracy. How much clearer does it have to be? It means they're not concerned with the ratio of civilian casualties to combatant casualties. I mean, how much clearer does it have to be?
Right.
Since those remarks, the Israeli military has waged a campaign that has left millions of Palestinians displaced, thirsty, hungry, sick, and without fuel, launched indiscriminate airstrikes, and used white phosphorus, yes, a chemical weapon that causes burns in densely populated areas, in direct contravention of international law. I think this is the last one. Yes, it is. The lawsuit notes that Israel has been the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign aid since World War II. As of January 2023, America had sent $260 billion, adjusted for inflation, in military and economic aid to Israel since 1946. And as of March, Israel had a $4.4 billion worth of American-provided munitions. In the diplomatic arena, the U.S. has repeatedly used its veto power in the United Nations to block resolutions critical of Israel's human rights and international law violations. Amid the current war, the U.S. has opposed multiple resolutions calling for a ceasefire. Quote, we have lost so many people, but there are still many more who are living, and we owe it to them to do everything possible to stop this genocide, said Herzala, one of the plaintiffs with family in Gaza. I have done everything in my power. I have participated in protests, sit-ins, wrote letters to my representatives, civil disobedience. Now I am asking the courts to end this ongoing genocide. This was a very well done article. I encourage you all to read it. It's longer than what we had here. I took pieces from it, so not all of that is, what do they call it? Continuous. I kind of skipped around a little bit just to let you all know. But Prem Thacker, yeah, it was really well done and well argued. And I think it's important to have those arguments on record because that knocks down just about every single one of them. And it establishes in very rational sort of legal speak, okay, we can establish that there's no regard for civilian casualties. That means we know that there are genocidal war crimes going on. We know that the United States has the power to stop it and is not. And we know that historically leading up to this, the United States, our government, because this lawsuit is against Biden, our government has been Israel's top funder. Right. And Israel has been the top recipient of U.S. aid for now 75 years. So it's well argued. So whether or not this actually has standing in an actual courtroom, which again, Glenn Greenwald could give us some insight on that if he agrees to come on the show. But yeah, whether it has
friend
standing
of show,
or not,
Glenn Greenwald.
Yeah, exactly. It's still good. It's still good to have that out there for sure.
I think probably the proper venue for this suit would be the International Criminal Court. Like, this probably belongs in The Hague.
Right.
Like, I don't know that there's a mechanism for holding individuals within governments responsible for their crimes against humanity or war crimes other than the International Criminal Court. I think that is the venue.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. But I mean, we're not part of the ICC. We have excluded ourselves from the ICC because we commit a lot of war crimes, right? So we couldn't join. But this lawsuit is specifically against Biden, basically calling out the extent to which the United States is complicit.
But this is another question I have. Even though we're not signatories, does that mean you can't get arrested? Because I've long heard, I have Hitchens's book back here, The Trial of Henry Kissinger.
Right.
I've long heard that Kissinger doesn't leave the country because he's afraid they're going to arrest him.
That's interesting. I have not heard that. But that's an interesting point. All right, let's go to some more super chats. Let's see. Let's knock out I think we got some Rumble rants here as well. Okay, let's take some Rumble rants. If I had to pick one, I'd rather dump money into and give the People's Party another chance at getting ballot access than waste it on the Greens, who spent the past decade losing 25 states worth of it. Yeah, I would say that's a none of the above for me. I don't think the People's Party is really intent on running candidates anymore. I think they're basically just an advocacy group now for whatever. And I apologize if your names are not on these. Like I said, we don't have Jake here today, so I can't work these the way we usually do. But thank you for the donations to everyone who made them on Rumble. They are super helpful. Cornell, the Greens, etc. are why I gave up on Social Democrats. Unorganized, squishy goofuses. Marxist-Leninists, on the other hand, know how to organize. Well, yeah, I mean, that's something you could say for sure. I think what Nader said about the Greens in the midsection there was spot on. It was sandwiched between two lousy points, but what he said in the middle there is absolutely right, and he knows from experience. They're an organization of people for whom the stakes personally are quite low, and so there's not the incentive to get their shit together, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna say this very carefully. So I do understand where the people who are more in the communist, Marxist, Leninist arena are coming from regarding it's the only way you could really beat the capitalist class. They're not wrong about that, especially when you get into old money, like these old money families, the people you don't see. Yeah, man, you're not removing those people from power through social democracy. The only way is with a revolution.
Revolutions, yeah, of course. Julia M.R., thank you. Why don't more left shows, Jimmy Dore an exception, address the illegal jab mandates, the DOD roles, and the spiking excess mortality? West awful on this. I tried to ask Jimmy how he gets away with talking about that and not have his show turned off. That's why people don't do it. When small channels do that stuff, they get turned off.
Right.
You know.
Well, I think a lot of us never dug into it because at the time that it was really, really important to talk about it, we couldn't.
Right.
And
but that's
now
why we're
that you
adding
have a
Rumble
little more
stream.
leeway, it's kind of like not as much of an issue.
Yeah, it's not as much of an issue now, but that's one of the reasons why we're adding a Rumble stream, so that we're just like free to cover certain things that we would have to walk on eggshells around here. But thank you for the question. McDougal, thank you for the $5. Is it Patreon or locals? I am stupid and can't find any links. Can you put them in the about or on your Twitter? Here, I'll put it up for you right now so you can write it down. You got a pencil? You got one of them old-fashioned writing machines, so writing instruments? Patreon.com/do dissidents. We only plug it 8 times every hour. But
where the fuck do you get the balls?
That's good supporter outreach there. Yeah, patreon.com.
That is quite a sign-up pitch.
Yeah, quite a sign-up pitch. Patreon.com/do dissidents. That's it right there. And then you can call us, because I would love for you to call in to a Q&A and talk to us about Trump, rather than pitch it all the time with the super chats. But thank you, McDougal. Appreciate you. And by signing up, you got us one step closer to our 4th stream. We got a couple of you guys. I charmed a couple of you guys into it with that last pitch, 3 to be exact. So we got to be at 450 by now. We were knocking on the door at 450 to start the show. So we're getting close, folks. Getting close.
I always say you are one charming motherfucker, Keaton.
I try. The people, the infinite, thanks for the $5. I would actually side with KTN about all this incompetence being practical, but I got to go with... Oh, Keaton, I get you. But I got to go with Russell with Epstein prison guards on break. It's Rich. Yeah,
you know.
It's not just incompetence, though. I think, like I said, like a threat... Oh, here we go. This is the second part. Has to be clear evidence of homicidal forces within these institutions. Just sucks we can never find a way to publicly investigate. Y'all rock. Again, like that's a situation. I'm not going to tell you it's not there. I'm going to tell you it's not necessary to explain what they do. It's not necessary to explain.
I mean, that's the Occam's razor.
Why an Ivy League professor doesn't want to cost Joe Biden the election. An Ivy League professor in good standing with academia and the mainstream media doesn't want to be on the hook for a second Trump term. You could explain that very easily. He will be ostracized. Everything he worked for his whole life will be upended by that.
Sure.
Right? Like
sure.
That, to me, is a sufficient explanation. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't need to look under that to explain. Not that there's not good reason to look under that anyway, but you don't need to look under that hood to explain why he ran this the way he did.
No, it's just if you put in the push pins in your map and you run all the yarn, there is definitely a pattern of people who seem like they should know better, all of a sudden not knowing better in the clutch. All of a sudden, when it matters, they don't know better all of a sudden. So, yeah,
right,
there's a pattern.
Right, but what I'm saying is that those other consequences that I talked about, which are less dire, also explain why they get cold feet, also explain why they chicken out, right?
Sure.
Try hard. Thanks for the $2. Keaton has a serious case of bedhead this morning. I always have bedhead, yeah. My hair is at that length now where it's like it's not short or long, which that generates the worst bedhead. Because when you have long hair and you have bedhead, you just wet it and it goes down. When you have short hair, you don't get bedhead. But this in between, like now, if there's a patch that's like doing this, you see like what this patch is doing back here. I can't control it. Even if I wet it, it just comes back, right? So bear with me at this time.
Respect his privacy.
Please bear with me at this time. Once I either get a haircut or grow it longer, which I think I'm going haircuts now. I don't want to have the long hair again. I don't enjoy it. All right, let's move on. Okay, this is a funny one. We haven't really talked much about Michael Rappaport, which was negligent on our part because Michael Rappaport has been the most darkly comic presence online since the outbreak of the Israel-Gaza war. Because this guy, most of the time, it's just stupidity. Most of the time, it's just, hey, yo, fucking, yo, these college kids are anti-Semitism. You know, like, how can you even respond to that? except to just point and laugh, which, I mean, I guess that's content of a kind. But we like to keep it a little more highbrow than that here at the Do Dissidents podcast. And so he made another one of these videos.
That's what we're known for, highbrow.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. At least more highbrow than that. But he came out with a video. He dropped a video. I think this was yesterday morning. He dropped this video. Now, this is a Jewish guy. We are Jewish guys. What do we say all the time? How linking Judaism to Zionism actually furthers anti-Semitism. It doesn't help to rid the world of anti-Semitism. It only makes the problem worse. Here's Michael Rapaport warning people who don't support Israel that there will be consequences. What kinds of consequences? Well, he and his friends, who he's been talking to, won't give you money anymore unless you support Israel. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So here's Michael Rapaport on the streets of the Upper East Side of Manhattan explaining why you need this is one more incentive, shall we say, to fall in line with the IDF.
Yeah, this was basically like he fell off an anti-Semitic trope ladder and hit every rung on the way down.
Yeah, exactly.
Amongst my Jewish, a lot of conversations amongst my Jewish friends about the silence, the disappointment, the disappearing acts on some Doug Henning, David Blaine shit just disappeared, boom, in the air. A lot of people have disappeared.
It's because the Mossad got him.
Yeah.
We are making a list. We are checking it twice. And we already know who's been naughty or nice. See that pun? You see that pun? I'm talking about the Jewish people, but I'm also...
I know what you're going for. It's not a pun. See what I mean? The guy's just not that smart. That's why most of his stuff is not worth commenting on. But here he goes. Now he gets into the threat.
Talking Christmas carols. We will not forget. We're not suckers. So when you come around asking for this, that, and the third, come around asking for money, investments, and all that stuff, I promise you.
Let me cover up my horns.
It's being discussed.
When you come into our banks and ask for your little mortgage loans.
When you come to our media companies and ask for favorable coverage.
Ask for good press. Yeah, exactly. We know who you are. We're keeping track.
We're paying attention to who's being anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, or not saying anything at all. I promise you. We see. I'm the enigma. A lot of Jewish people seem nice. We seem like we're suckers.
Yeah, you seem real nice.
Seem like you can kind of
like a very
That's the first thing to come to mind.
Trust me. Don't come around 6 months, 8 months, 2 years. We're remembering. We're paying attention.
Don't come to us asking for money unless you support Israel. I mean,
when we're making our matzahs with the blood of Christian children.
Yeah, exactly. How the fuck could you go out of your way to perpetuate every anti-Semitic trope you can? Like I said, Russell and I, we say this as Jews ourselves. We have to say that for the YouTube censors. I know you guys all know this. But how is this in service of the Jewish people? How does this stamp out anti-Semitism? I mean, this guy, like you said, he hits every rung on the anti-Semitic trope ladder. I was waiting for him to go up to a coffee stand. I'll take a coffee regular. 175. Whoa, oh, it was 150 2 weeks ago. Well, you think you're fucking with me here? Is it because I'm Jewish? You think you can overcharge me? You think I'm a sucker because I'm Jewish? I'm giving you a 150 and I'm taking my coffee and I'm getting the fuck out of here. Hey, everybody here to put the newsstand. Here's a newsstand, 81st and 3rd Avenue. This guy's anti-Jewish, overcharging for coffee on purpose because he knows I'm Jewish. That's the only thing he could do to make this a bigger mockery
There's
of
one more
himself.
thing he could do. Hey, there's a diner over here. I need to go order some soup and send it back to the kitchen.
Yeah, right, exactly. This would be like, having a Sicilian guy walking down the street. Hey, any of you guys got a problem with Columbus Day? You better watch your fucking mouth because, you can end up hurt if you talk like that. like that's like perpetuating.
It'd be a shame if something happened to those kneecaps of yours.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you fucking Indigenous Peoples Day, mafangul? That's what that'd be the cultural equivalent.
No, look, I think everyone who is a member of a group that is subject to harmful stereotypes has this experience because you have certain people who play to those stereotypes. And if you're a member of that group, you say, oh, fuck. Oh, man. Now I've got to carry this. I got to carry this because of this fucking asshole. Now now I got to fucking tip 25% next time I go to a fucking restaurant to make up for Michael fucking Rappaport.
One of my best friends in high school, college, he was an African-American black guy. I'm still in touch with him, but he used to yell at the movie screen when we would go to movies. And I was always afraid, what if somebody makes a racial insult at him for yelling at the movie screen? Now we're going to have to throw down because I'm going to have to defend him, right? And so it's like, sometimes you're in a situation where like, yeah. And I know I probably, although I don't know. I'm a pretty good tipper. I don't think I perpetuate the anti-Semitic stereotypes.
I mean, I grew up with Italians.
Yeah.
So a lot of my habits in those areas are much more Italian influenced. The way I am in my relationships is much more like an Italian guy. That's why when I would sit in the car and watch my aunt scream at my uncle, I would be like, I can't. I was like, the Michael Corleone and Casey, he would come out. Right. It was an abortion. Just like my hand would be going up, involuntarily, just as a reflex. You didn't read the map right. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing because my cultural sensibility is much more Italian. You know, when I came of age, start dating, all my advice came from Italians. Right. All my role models were Italian. Right. So yeah, man, that's just it's terrible. It's terrible, man. When you have somebody like this, and it's just incredible. Whenever I see something like that, I'm just like, so you have heard about these stereotypes, right? Like you're aware of them?
Yeah.
Like,
we're
so
not going to lend
what are
you
you
our
doing?
money. You know, we control all the money, and we're not going to give it to you unless you support Israel. Like, what kind of an idiot?
Like, even if you are this kind of a fucking scumbag, right. Do you want to perpetuate that stereotype by making a statement like that and putting it out there on social media? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, no, just insane. Just absolutely insane. And, like, I mean, his stuff has just been so horrible. The thing about this is, and this is why I talked about, on the last show, this really reveals so much of what actual racism is. This really reveals, you can see all the ingredients of real bona fide bigotry and racism come out in this. I think one of the characteristics of actual die-in-the-wool racists is that they have no self-awareness whatsoever. They can't step outside of themselves and see how they're coming off or see how they are presenting themselves. Michael Rappaport did a video the other day. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's not going to happen. Jewish people aren't going anywhere. What do you mean? So Palestine will be free. That's not going to happen. So you're saying the people in Palestine are never going to be free. There's no liberation for them. Not going to happen. Right? It's one thing to say you interpret that phrase to have some sort of eliminationist intent and argue your case. Again, I don't think you can argue it very well. Certainly Rappaport couldn't argue it very well. It's one thing to argue that case. It's another thing to just, with this bluster and characteristic sort of New York street bravado that he likes to put on, that's not going to happen. Like, you don't understand Palestine will be free. That's not going to happen. You don't understand how those two sentences side by side make you look like, expose you for being an absolute bigot. Like, you don't see yourself. You don't see yourself. They don't. I honestly don't think, like, Dana Bash sees herself. I don't think they have that self-awareness. This is how you could tell actual racists, they don't have that ability to empathize. Meaning put yourself in other person's shoes and look at yourself.
Well, it's racism plus lack of consequences. That's how you get
exactly
when you watch these civil rights era videos of crackers down south. Yeah, well, they're not like us. Like even people who think like that today would not go on camera and say something like that. They feel comfortable because they're used to having the media having their back. They're used to not getting called out by it. For it by people who can actually impose consequences. The institutions of society have never held them accountable. That video that I did on October 8th of the protest, somebody said something similar. A guy was going, Palestine will be free, and I subtitled it so you could hear what he was saying. It was like, No, it won't. No, it won't. Wait until the bombs rain down on you.
Yep, exactly.
Why would you say something like that? Like, you're right. I mean, you have to be so in a bubble where you feel absolutely confident. And it does raise questions about human psychology. Like, are people only as good as their institutions force them to be? Like, if you don't impose consequences, this is how they behave. If they've been told that this will make you'll be treated as superior and right if you behave in this way, they just will.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's a combination of lack of self-awareness and insulation from any negative consequence that could come as a result of making what are just overtly bigoted statements. We've talked about this a lot on the show. It's one of the main things we talk about in the show, about how capital and corporations have really hijacked a lot of woke discourse to really put matters of, race and gender front and center in political discourse, which means that you have created a society where a lot of people feel like they have to walk on eggshells in order to not be called a racist. But then you see how all of that goes out the window on Israel-Palestine. All of it. All of that. All of a sudden, everybody's talking like the Dixiecrats in the mid-'60s, about the Arabs. It's just incredible.
Well, that's why it's so
like a flip of a switch,
them.
boom, and you're living in a completely different world.
Well, and that's why they're so intent on portraying themselves as the marginalized victims.
Right.
Because they have to square that circle, right? But there's such cognitive dissonance around this. Okay, so the impoverished, blockaded people who are half children dying daily, they're in the position of the oppressor?
Right.
Really? Like, it's just an impossible trick to pull off, but they're trying, because that's the only way that they can try to square this with the identity politics that, as you say, until 5 minutes ago, that most of these people would have been the loudest proponents of.
Exactly. McDougal, thanks for the $10. MAGA delegation doesn't understand the insane fervor from both camps. Both sides virtue signal for foreign nations when we want the focus to be at home. Also signed up. Well, thanks for the sign up, McDougal.
Thank
but
you.
What we are doing is not virtue signaling. I'm not virtue signaling my support for the people of Gaza and the West Bank. This is an urgent political issue with obviously real-world consequences. So I don't think it's virtue signaling on the parts of the protesters. We're going to see Jewish Voice for Peace getting beat up by the cops. They're not out there to virtue signal. They'll put their body where their mouth is.
Right. We're just anti-child murder.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But thanks for signing up, my friend, and I look forward to talking to you. You seem like a fun guy to talk to. Franklin Worsham, thanks for the $4.99. Standing has to do with particularized injury. For example, no taxpayer standing, not suing official in their capacity has to do with sovereign immunity. Interesting. Maybe we should have you on and not Glenn Greenwald. What do we need Glenn Greenwald for?
Maybe you can be the new Glenn Greenwald, and we'll pump you up.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Maybe we'll have you air exactly when he airs.
Right. Maybe we'll put on a competing show.
Yeah, that's
exclusively on Rumble. How's that?
The Due Dissidence Legal Clinic with Frank Worsham and Jose Vega.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Thanks, Derek P, for the $10. One coalition would be looking out for the mobile global economic class, and the other for the less mobile, economically disrupted. The next political realignment, not good. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate that. All right, let's take one more, and then we got a couple more segments to do, and we'll get to we have, I think, a couple more Rumble rants to get to also. We'll get to everything before we leave. Don't worry. Pete Sweet, thanks for the $10. Book suggestion: Prophetic, Evangelical Zionists, and Secular Neocons. That sounds like an interesting one. By Barry Leonardini, 2007. How religious and secular forces within the Pentagon politics and lobby seize power to dictate foreign policy. That sounds like a good read.
That does. Hang on, let me get a shot of that. That sounds right along the lines of the kinds of things I'm reading right now.
Beautiful.
Got it.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate you. All right, I'll take this one since it's funny. New Due Dissident segment suggestion: professional hair care advice by Keaton Weiss. Yes.
I mean, I usually take a shower not too long before the show to avoid that problem.
Yeah, I don't have time. I have to get the kids out to school.
Yeah.
It's a mad dash on Friday mornings. The sacrifices we make. All right, folks, we have 2 more segments, and they are both related to protests surrounding Israel and Gaza. So here's segment number 1. Jewish Voice for Peace rallied outside the Democratic National Committee headquarters on November 16th. Peace vigil demanding DNC call for ceasefire in Gaza violently attacked by police. I'm sorry, the article was the 16th. The action was the night of the 15th, I believe. Jewish Voice for Peace. This is from their website, their newsletter announcement. Washington, D.C. police violently attacked nonviolent anti-war activists at a ceasefire vigil outside a fundraiser event held by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee on Wednesday evening. Wielding pepper spray and pellet guns, the police rushed members of the interfaith vigil without warning, where some activists had blocked some of the doors of the Democratic DCCC's candidate event, asking politicians to call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The activists were joined by faith leaders in calling for a ceasefire to end the Israeli military's massacre of the Palestinians, to facilitate a hostage exchange. That's one thing that's, they always say, well, what do you mean ceasefire? We have to free the hostages. Everybody advocating a ceasefire wants all the hostages freed. That's part of the deal. Right? And to ensure that the humanitarian and medical aid can reach Palestinians in besieged Gaza. As hundreds of anti-war protesters assembled with 11,000 candles and signs calling for a ceasefire, 11,000 signifying the number of Palestinians who have been killed, D.C. police, many in riot gear, rushed the candlelit vigil and attacked protesters, blocking some of the entrances to the doors of the DCCC. According to Jeff Ordower, a member of Jewish Voice for Peace Action, the D.C. police rushed to protesters without warning. We've been doing actions in D.C. for decades and have never had police refuse to talk to a police liaison. The vigil continued for 30 minutes with participants singing "Which Side Are You On?" and chanting "Ceasefire Now." The vigil was sponsored by If Not Now, DSA, and Jewish Voice for Peace. The Democratic Party showed us exactly how it feels about its voters, said Sumaya Awad, a member of New York City DSA. The Israeli military stormed a hospital in Gaza. Airstrikes have killed over 4,500 children, and water is running out. Over 80% of Democratic voters are demanding a ceasefire and brought that message of peace to party leadership, who responded by unleashing an incredibly violent police attack on them. So let's go to some video of how this went down. We're going to go some video of the protest right now.
Because a number of political...
Sorry.
We came out to the DNC because a number of political representatives are gathered here tonight to, wine and dine. And we, the people, coalition of Muslims, Jews, Palestinians, people from all over this country, old people, young people, people with disabilities. 80% of Democrats, 66% of Americans think that it is wrong what the Netanyahu government is doing right now. They believe that endless bloodletting is not the way to go, that we need an immediate ceasefire. We have over 12,000 Gazans now dead, 4,000 children, many Israelis dead, over 1,500 Israelis. It's enough with the bloodshed. And we just came here for a peaceful protest, and immediately we see something that looks more like a fascist state, honestly. A massive police presence, shoving, pushing people on the ground, tear gas, when all we want is a ceasefire. All we want is peace. We came in the name of peace, and America wants peace. So it's time for the Democratic Party to decide, are you on the side of your constituents? Are you on the side of the people of this country who believe in a ceasefire in Gaza? Or are you on the side of the warmongers? Are you on the side of the people who want to bloodlet endlessly?
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
sir.
appreciate it.
Free, free, free Palestine!
So here they are gathered. Now we're going to show the footage of the police intervention. Now, as we will find out, because there's a CNN clip that we're going to play after this, obviously the politicians called the cops in, right? And one of the things that I just want to mention here is we've seen Jewish Voice for Peace do a lot of activism in this past now almost month and a half, most notably the giant Grand Central Terminal sit-in, which was totally peaceful. right? I mean, this is not an organization that gets violent, that gets rough. At Grand Central Terminal, they all sat down, they chanted, and then they knew they were going to get arrested, a lot of them. And when they did, they complied. They got into the vans. We're going to make the police arrest us because that's how you disrupt the system and that's how you get attention. So not a violent group, not a history of any sort of violent protest at all. Here they are chanting. Now, this was called a riot. Fox News has said this was a riot. This is referred to as a riot. It wasn't a riot, at least not until the cops showed up and started this.
Well, and also, I sent you, there was a really interesting CNN segment on this that was surprisingly fair. Because someone they were interviewing was saying that they sprayed the police with pepper spray. And CNN actually pushed back. The person was like, well, that hasn't been established.
Yeah, in the clip we're about to play, the anchor does say at the end that they don't know where it came from. But here, let's play some of this. So they were singing "Which Side Are You On" right in front of the main door. Now, apparently there are 11 entrances to this building, and some have claimed that there were protesters blocking all 11. That does not appear to be the case. Jewish Voice for Peace had said we had some protesters singing songs outside of some doors, but it didn't look like they had all 11 entrances blocked. It didn't look like the crowd was big enough to do all that.
Right.
And again, I can't confirm that, but that doesn't seem to be the case based on what we've heard from JVP and what we're seeing here. What we're seeing here is the cops trying to remove them from the front doors.
People getting thrown down the stairs.
See, this is also a lesson in why the Democrats were so hostile to the, defund the police, right? Because they need them for situations like that, right? They like to call the cops too.
Oh,
all right.
They sure do.
Indeed.
I like to call the cops more than anybody. What are you kidding? Bunch of fucking suburban rich motherfuckers.
Exactly. So let's go. How are we doing on the Rumble stream? Good? All right. Now I'm paranoid it's going to break every 2 seconds. All right, good. So now we're going to go to CNN. CNN reported on this, and they interviewed Brad Sherman, who is a congressman, Democratic congressman, who was in the building at the time. So let's hear his recounting of events.
In Washington calling for a ceasefire in Gaza turning tense. Just take a look at this. It happened outside of the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee. And it looks
it
like
happened when the police showed up and tried to break it up. It wasn't violent until the cops tried to break it up.
Coming face to face with U.S. Capitol Police and D.C. Metropolitan Police. Some members of Congress had to be evacuated from the building. California Congressman Brad Sherman posted on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, that he was one of them, and he joins me now. Congressman, thanks for joining me. Can you tell us?
Take a pause. Yeah, why don't we read that? Why don't we read his tweet there? Just because they put that up very quickly.
California Congressman.
Well, let's see what he said. Was just evacuated from the DNC after pro-terrorist, anti-Israel protesters. Yeah, Jewish Voice for Peace, pro-terrorist, grew violent. Pepper spraying police, which has not been confirmed. In fact, it's quite likely it was the other way around, and attempting to break into the building. No evidence that they attempted to break into the building. They were singing songs outside of the door.
I'm not going to say it's impossible, but these types of people are not the types of people who would acquire pepper spray, much less use it.
Right, yeah, exactly. Thankful to the police officers who stopped them and for helping me and my colleagues get out safely.
Sherman posted on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, that he was one of them, and he joins me now. Congressman, thanks for joining me. Can you tell us what happened when you were inside that building?
Well, we were gathered together to meet candidates from all over the country that will be our candidates in swing districts. Our leadership was there, but most of them had left, and there were many others there. We heard the demonstrators outside. They disrupted us a bit. And then we were told we were in lockdown and would not be allowed to leave. And then the police came in, the Capitol Police, who did an outstanding job, and evacuated us through the basement.
And you said that there were members of leadership there. Which members were there, and did they leave before the protesters turned violent?
The protesters did not. I've seen so much footage of this online. We're hearing the accounts from Jewish Voice for Peace. We're seeing the video corroborate. The protests did not turn violent until the police came and tried to drag them down the stairs away from the entrance.
And even then, it's not violent. They're not swinging at the police.
No, they're not swinging at them. They're not. They're you know, they're being dragged away.
Right.
No, it's not fun being dragged away by a cop. So you know, you're hearing some screaming, some back and forth. But yeah, ultimately, what was this?
Clark and Pete Aguilar, our three top leaders, were all there. Of course, Susan Del Buene, the head of the DCCC, also one of our top leaders, was there at the when the evacuation took place.
We know that there were some arrests and the area is now open again. And Senator Schumer says there's going to be a vote tonight on the stopgap spending bill. How were you able to get out? And were you concerned at all for your safety as this was all going on?
I've been doing this for 27 years. I don't get that concerned. Some other of my colleagues were much more concerned. We were evacuated in police vehicles to the Capitol,
Brad
and then went home
in the
from
halls
there.
Of Congress.
The one point I want to make is yesterday there were over 2.
Oh, this is my favorite. I almost talked over this. Sorry, I almost spoiled it.
The stopgap spending bill. How were you able to get out? And were you concerned at all for your safety as this was all going on?
Sorry, I backed it up too much.
I've been doing this
for
for 27 years. I don't get that concerned. Some other of my colleagues were much more concerned. We were evacuated in police vehicles to the Capitol and then went home from there. The one point I want to make is yesterday there were over 200,000 pro-Israel demonstrators with a permit, entirely peaceful. And here you have a demonstration less than 1,000th as large that's also getting publicity. And it's getting publicity because their willingness to attack police, as they did with pepper spray, is a force multiplier. A few demonstrators willing to attack police getting a fair amount of publicity, whereas the amount of publicity for 200,000 peaceful demonstrators proportionately less.
And I just want to make a note here that we don't know exactly who was responsible for the pepper spray, but as we continue to report on this story, we'll learn more.
Surprising.
Congressman Brad Sherman, I do thank you for joining us.
Good job doing a semi-fact check on that. But notice, contrast this violent riot with the peaceful protest of 200,000 pro-Israel demonstrators. There's another, like I said, there's a couple videos, a couple stories, should I say, not both of them are videos, a couple things going around that are very big on Twitter now, which you notice none of the YouTubers are covering because we can't. But Medea Benjamin had a run-in with some Zionist participants at the March for Israel where they said things to her that I really don't feel comfortable putting on the YouTube channel because the AI bot might not know that we are critiquing that, right? They will hear obscene, unthinkably violent, sick threats made at her. So no, the protesters at the Israel March were not categorically peaceful. And notice you didn't hear
and why don't
any
they
of those
cover
threats
that?
Made from the Palestine March the week prior in Washington, D.C. Has any video surfaced of ceasefire protesters threatening Zionist counter-protesters? Because I promise you CNN would have been all over that if that video were out there. All over it, and we haven't seen it.
I've personally been to 2 now, filmed them. I'm honest. If I saw it, I would show it. I would definitely cut that in.
Right.
I haven't seen it. Either time, I haven't seen it. And look, we can't cover the Medea Benjamin thing. But they can, but they won't.
Right, they won't. Exactly.
And if you had footage like that of Palestinians saying anything equivalent or Palestine protesters saying, that would be everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere. It would be wall-to-wall coverage of that video.
Exactly. Good question here. Will DD air it on Rumble? Well, yeah, when we add our Rumble stream, that's what it's designed for. And we have a Patreon stream coming up next week. So if you want to kick in and help us do the show, we got a lot of juicy stuff for the Patreon show that'll be next week or the week after, right? We haven't set a date yet because you're working Monday. Anyway, we'll work that out. But we'll have a date. We'll announce the date on Sunday for our next Patreon stream.
And Monday, I'm also picking up my press pass.
That's right.
I
Russell
got
Popular has a
approved.
press pass now. He is officially a journalist now.
I am officially a pro.
Take a picture of that and text that to Jordan Sheridan.
Yeah. I mean, they always...
He'll be proud of us. We've come a long way.
We have come a long way.
Yeah.
I assume, I haven't seen his coverage of this. I assume he's taking the same position on Palestine we're taking.
Well, he had a reporter out covering the rally, right?
I saw Jordan's guy there. Yeah, I said hi to him. Yeah, they know that you're press because there's just nobody who's going to be running out in front of the people and filming like that for their scrapbook, right? I mean, it's obvious that you're press, but
right, you're not there for posterity.
Right,
Yeah.
and generally the cops will treat you as press if you're acting like press, but it's better to have the pass anyway.
Yeah, of course. That's big. Some Rumble rants before our final segment. My Building 7 buddy, that's the alternate title to our podcast, Building 7 Buddies, said he was at the pond feeding the ducks and overheard David Gilmour listening to I'm All Out of Love by Air Supply on a loop. Sick. On a Discman. Outrageous. He needs help. I know Waters and Gilmour have had a falling out.
Yes, they are not. And they were never able to patch it up, sadly.
Yep.
Unlike the surviving members of the Beatles.
Right, exactly. A devout Muslim I worked with served. I was stunned, so some apparently do. Oh, you live in Haifa, right? None of my friends or neighbors here have served, so I imagine it's a small percentage. Thank you for that. Appreciate that
Interesting.
input. Your face violently hit my fist when you were peacefully protesting. Now I have a scrape on my hand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
The protest turned violent. And good morning from the Northwest. You guys rock. Thank you very much, T-Bone.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, my friend.
Twin Peaks country.
Yes. Thank you guys all for the Rumble rants. Those are super helpful over there. We got some super chats to get to here on YouTube. Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks for the $1.99. Rappaport made a funny joke about Trump once. Yeah, that's right. His contribution to society. Those will outlive him. That'll be his legacy.
What the hell was he in? He's one of those guys like you know him, but you can't think off the top of your head. Was he in City Slickers? Was he in that? Am I making that up?
I don't think so.
It wasn't, right?
That was Daniel Stern, Billy Crystal, and John Lovitz, right? Right? That's what that was?
That?
Was
No,
John
it
Lovitz
wasn't.
City
No, it
Slickers?
wasn't John Lovitz.
Who was the third guy in that?
I forget. Like I can picture him, but I can't.
It wasn't Rappaport.
I can't remember it. No. No, you're right. You're right.
I'm right. It wasn't Rappaport.
Yeah, it wasn't Rappaport.
But it wasn't Lovitz either.
No, it wasn't Lovitz.
Okay.
I can't remember. Somebody's going to get it in the chat.
Somebody will know. I used to listen to Michael Rappaport's podcast back in the day, and I kid you not, most of his information about Israel-Palestine conflict comes from having known egghead Eli Lake on the podcast. That could be true. The thing I remember Rappaport in was, I think he was one of the burglars in that Baby's Day Out movie. That was an old movie.
True Romance. That's right. He was in True Romance. Higher Learning, I've never seen. He was like the friend, wasn't he?
Oh, yes. Now I remember. I remember that, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Deep
He was
Blue
in a
Sea, I
kids
never
movie,
saw that
stupid
either.
kids movie called Baby's Day Out. After Home Alone was a success, they started making a bunch of like lesser movies about like, bumbling bonehead bad guys since Joe Pesci
That's
and Daniel
right.
Stern were so popular.
That's right. He was in a lot of fucking Spike Lee movies. That's right. That's
he's
right.
been in a bunch of Spike Lee stuff, too.
Yes, that's where I've mainly seen him.
Yeah. Baby's Day Out was one with Joe Montana, Joe Pantoliano, and him as the three kidnappers.
Bruno Kirby, City Slickers.
That's right, Bruno Kirby. All right, he's easily confused with John Lovitz. I could see how I mixed those up. Did y'all see Tim Dillon's interview with that Zionist, episode 368? No, I don't watch him much, but I will check that out. It's something to look for. Thank you, People Infinite. No lucre for you. Thank you, George. Appreciate that. Thank you, George Gunnell. Yasim Miller, thank you, Yasim. Why don't I hear those complaints from my Jewish family members related through marriage, my childhood and lifetime Jewish friends in Istanbul? Because they know the truth and they are rational. That's in response to the Rappaport thing too. Thank you. This I flagged just because I thought it was interesting. I might watch this. Reza Babe, this is, sorry if I mispronounced that name. Can you guys comment on the interview Mark Lamont Hill did with David Lang? I'd love to know what you think. I'll put that on my list of things to watch for sure.
It's so hard. There's so much. Today, I think, is the day. There's that documentary, Tantora, I keep meaning to watch, that's about, it focuses on the Nakba in one specific Palestinian town where they got people who, like, committed mass murder against these people, admitting it on camera.
Yeah, saying on camera. Yeah. So it doesn't matter that Rep. Sherman is Jewish. Well, not necessarily. I mean, you could say that matters, but Hakeem Jeffries would say the exact same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it matters.
He's very angry. He fell asleep in Congress, and a member of Jewish Voice for Peace drew a urethra on his top of his head.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And he walked around like that all day. He was voting like that. He found out later. He's like, I'm going to get them.
All day long. Yeah, exactly. Kuznetsky Basane, safe has become corporate speak for establishment compliant. Yes, indeed. Good point.
Yes, absolutely. That's what's so dangerous about safetyism, as it's often called.
Exactly. Alrighty, so this is our last segment of the day. Folks, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, hit that follow button over on Rumble. Very important that we build our followings on all these platforms. Final segment of the day. So I'll set this up, and then I'll toss to Russell to set up the video. We did a segment, I believe it was on Sunday night's show, reporting on the development that Columbia University had suspended pro-Palestinian student activists groups, one of them being Jewish Voice for Peace, who we just saw in our previous segment about their Washington, D.C. protest. And so the students at the university and New Yorkers more broadly, rightfully, thankfully, good for them, they were not going to take that lying down. And so they had a protest outside of Columbia University, which is right near the Russell Dobular residence, protesting.
My stately home.
Yes, right outside Dobular Estates, protesting that decision. So Russell went over to Broadway and 116th Street and filmed what was going on. So do you want to set up what we're going to see?
Yes, it was a peaceful protest, in spite of how they might try to spin it, although I haven't heard them say anything about this. They didn't comment on this at all in the media from what I saw, although I guess somewhere in California, because someone said they saw me. Something to make special note of, and this is why I included it, because it really just says it all about how this whole event has blown apart the shallow identity politics that have dominated the liberal class for so long. There's a guy there interrogating the Jewish Hasidics there who are protesting against the occupation of Palestine by confronting them with their position on gay marriage. Yep. It's a little hard to hear, but he's going, do you support gay marriage? Do you support gay marriage? See? Do you support gay marriage for Palestinians?
Yeah, that's the Bill Maher argument. Yeah.
The fuck? Are you crazy? Are you crazy? They're killing thousands of fucking children a day. A day.
Thousands a week, yeah.
Thousands a week. And you want to interrogate their position on gay rights in Palestine in the middle of a genocide? If that does not sum up where all of that philosophy ends, I don't know what does. A guy interrogating people protesting against a genocide on the grounds of what is their position on gay marriage for the people being genocided. I mean, that's it. That's it. But yeah, I was very impressed with a lot of the speakers. Both Muslim and Jewish speakers were there, and I think that was very important to get across to people that there is a unity, that it's not the narrative that the Zionists are desperately trying to convey. That's why Jewish Voice for Peace is so inconvenient for them. But then when you get like an old school rabbi like you'll see here, that is very difficult for them to get around.
Yeah, and he was a great speaker. He was really good.
Yeah, I want to get him on the show. I may the rabbi actually interviewed. I got his card, so hopefully we'll have him on. But yeah, and actually, just mentioning with the Jewish Voice for Peace, because this was one thing I wanted to mention, and it's relevant here too. More and more, this is reminding me of the Vietnam era, as I keep saying. And one of the things about the Vietnam era is, if you remember, the students had a certain porcine nickname for the police. And it was because they had a lot of encounters like that. You see, white middle class and upper middle class kids don't normally see that side of the cops, right? They're from the establishment. Their parents are well established. They are from the class that the police are there to protect.
Right.
And all of a sudden they step out of line. They find out what poor people, and I can tell you, having grown up poor white, I knew this about the cops very young, because they do not treat poor white people the way they treat these white people, right? There is a difference. And I'm not saying it's the same thing as being a person of color. That's another level, but it's not the same thing as being these white people. They don't treat all white people the same way. When you're a poor white person, man, same shit. Your Miranda warnings, that's for TV. They don't give you those rights if they know you don't have the power to force them to face consequences if they don't extend them to you. Like all of these things that people who are from these privileged backgrounds just don't know about how the system works. All of a sudden you step outside of it, now you find out how it actually works. If they continue with this, they're going to have more experiences like this. And I would anticipate you're going to have a replay of that antagonism towards the forces that protect authority, like the police, like the military, that you had in that era.
All right. So to your footage, sir, how do you want to work this? You want to full screen this and play it all the way through, or you want to stop as we go? Whatever you want.
I would say full screen it and play it through.
All
It
right,
speaks for itself.
Let's do it. All right, this is about 5 minutes. This is Russell's footage from the Columbia University protests. What was this, on Tuesday? No, this was on Wednesday the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All righty, folks, here we go.
There's no sound.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? They won't say yes. They'll answer yes because they're anti-gay marriage. Look it up. They protested when the U.S. Supreme Court allowed gay marriage in the U.S. Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? Do you support gay rights for Palestinian people? Okay. Point across.
5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Israel is a terrorist state. Israel is a terrorist state.
Thing is stealing goes even against the Ten Commandments. And we used to live in Palestine in peace. I'm 8th generation Palestinian. We used to live in peace. My grandmother's still alive and she's still telling stories how good the relationship was. And the only problem started when the Zionists came up and started to make fights and ended up with occupying the land, killing people, and destroying the villages and throwing them out. And this caused all the problems. So actually, I was in Gaza twice. I was in Iran. I visited many Muslim countries. They have no problem with Jews. We can live together even after all what's happening. We just need to give them back the land, and that's it.
So your experience, what Muslim countries have you traveled to?
A lot.
A lot?
Yeah.
And your experiences, you were treated well?
Very well.
Okay. All right, sorry.
I went with my symbols. I'm not a Zionist. I'm anti-state of Israel. And that nobody have a problem. They have no problem with Jews.
I'm so tired of hearing of the instances of repression, whether at CUNY or Columbia or Cornell or Harvard or community colleges all over the country. And it's because our universities have investments, academic and financial, with the Zionist state of Israel. It is because our universities exist to serve the capitalists, not the students, not the staff, not the professors.
The more they try to silence us, the louder we will be. The more they try to silence us, the louder we will be.
There's one reason that we have to stand up more than any other person who's standing here, and that is because this colossal atrocity, this Nakba, is being committed by taking the name of Judaism and intimidating, threatening. Judaism is not the state of Israel. Oh, no, it isn't. Judaism is not the state of Israel. Judaism is not this colonial force, this selfish, flawed, political movement. It's a godly religion of 3,000 years. When will the world wake up? around the world, when Zionism started in Austria, said this is not our religion. Are you guys nuts? We are here to serve God, to emulate God, to be subservient to God, not to kill, not to steal, not occupy. Be compassionate. God is compassionate. Be compassionate. Zionism is antithetical to Judaism. Judaism is religion, 3,000 years. Zionism is a movement that's 75 years, 100 years. That is what it is. It is a nationalism masquerading in my religion. It is anti-Semitism to support the occupation.
Know that we have examples in history to look up to. Know that the people in Algeria lost millions for their revolution. Know that they cannot make us fall into despair, that we will not fall into despair because our money is being used to fund this. This is a generation that's unlike any other generation before. You are all witnesses to this oppression. You are all witnesses to this genocide, and whatever you do in this moment, whatever you do in this moment will matter for generations ahead. So do not take that lightly, but do not fall in despair. You are powerful, you are needed, and your voices collectively and individually will make this Zionist entity crumble.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! Israel falls! USA pays! How many kids did you kill today?
Colombia, you can't hide.
Colombia, you can't hide.
You support genocide.
You support genocide.
What do we want?
Justice.
No, it's mine. We didn't want it for this. What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it? Now. Every time media lies.
Every time media lies.
My neighborhood in Gaza dies.
My neighborhood in Gaza dies.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free, free Palestine.
Free, free, free Palestine.
And there you have it. Yeah, great stuff. I mean, it's great footage and a lot of great speakers. You talked about the heckler there, giving the guy a hard time about gay marriage in Palestine, and then you talked about the rabbi
in a genocide.
Yeah.
A genocide. I mean, I understand. It's not that we're saying we don't support that, but is that really the own that this guy thinks it is in this context? And the fact that he walks away like, look, I proved my point.
Well, that's an extension of the Bill Maher argument, which is they are not as liberal as we are in their social views, and so who cares if we genocide them? Right.
It's insane. It's insane. And this is where those dividing lines are blowing apart. And hey, man, credit where credit is due to these students that they are not taking this very black and white line and disowning these Jewish rabbis because they're not pro-LGBTQ, because until this happened, honestly, that's what I would have expected. Right. And they're proving to be a lot more advanced in their thinking than would have been indicated by some previous actions.
Well, the one other thing that stood out to me was that one speaker who said, I wrote it down, universities exist to serve the capitalists. Bingo, that's it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's why I included that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a very important point, and it's very impressive that they're able to see that. And this is the issue. You know, this is really a Pandora's box for all of these institutions, because once people open this up, a lot of narratives crumble. This is why I never bought the idea back in the early days of the RFK campaign. Well, he's terrible on this issue, but it's only one issue. No, it's not only one issue.
Right.
As you can see, this has tentacles into a million other issues,
right?
Including free speech. I saw that coming a mile away, right? And now a certain letter that The Guardian posted that no one's allowed to read or talk about, so much that they took it off the website. Now you have young people reading that and starting to learn, some things that they're not supposed to learn. That's why they're calling them stupid. Oh, you're stupid for reading this. Just like, Jimmy says all the time. During the pandemic, you were stupid for reading things and trying to learn things. Same thing here. You're stupid. If you read that, it's because you're stupid and you're ignorant. And the parents, shame on the parents for not parenting them better. It bleeds into all other issues because this is so central. And, people say this outright. RFK says this outright. Joe Biden said if there wasn't an Israel, we would have to create one. RFK, right. Israel is our aircraft carrier. Once the Israel narrative crumbles, so many other narratives crumble along with it. And that is this is a perfect example of now that they see how full of shit these progressive professors are, exactly, and these progressive universities are. They see how full of shit they are when the rubber hits the road. Well, now they're going to question everything that they hear from them. How do you take seriously commitment to any sort of racial justice if you're not for a ceasefire right now? If you're blacklisting people who are for a ceasefire right now and who make those sentiments known, like there's just no way to uphold any sort of confidence that anything of actual value is being taught at these woke, liberal, progressive universities once they see who they are on issues like this, in moments like this.
And I think some of them, as I was kind of intimating in my article, the Frankenstein article, is, I think it's going to wake a lot of them up to the fact of what we have always said about a lot of the identity politics, that it was always intended as a misdirection to keep them away from what they really care about, the money, to keep them away from questions of class and economics. They focused all their well-intentioned idealism on issues that they don't give a shit about because it doesn't cost them any money. They don't care who swims against who. What do they care? Right. They're still sleeping on a mattress full of cash. They don't care, and that is why that's all they wanted this generation to talk about. And again, I will draw the parallel to Vietnam because Vietnam red-pilled the boomers. Right? They grew up in that suburban Davy Crockett, Eisenhower America, and by the end of that decade, they're very aware of what a false facade has been presented to them about what America is and how it really works. And they're examining the underlying racism and imperialism of the country. And Vietnam, you could argue, was really the thing that blew all of that apart. That whole narrative that they had been raised on apart. Exactly. It seems like this is doing that for Gen Z. Because great point. I only used that clip, but that particular woman went on at length about Starbucks union workers and their solidarity with them. You never really heard shit like that from this generation. They are drawing the connections. They are connecting the dots. It really is, in a lot of respects, what I'm seeing is history repeating itself.
Yeah, it's a great point. How, the Vietnam era sort of was the end of the post-World War II sort of Pollyanna, Right. Exactly. And not that we had that after 9/11. It lasted about 8 months after 9/11. But a lot of Gen Zers, a lot of kids in college now don't recognize the effect that 9/11 and the war on terror had on our social fabric and on our political space, on our media
never known
space.
Anything else.
They never knew it because they either weren't around for it or they were 2 or 3 years old when 9/11 happened.
Right. They grew up in this environment.
They grew up, so they didn't know what came before and what came after. They couldn't contrast the two things. A lot of millennials don't know either because a lot of millennials were, I was 14 when it happened. I was particularly conscious of world events. That's how I ended up where I am now, folks. But most kids my age weren't conscious of it either. So a lot of people of my generation have a real blind spot about that too. But it was obvious to me because I was tuned in. But the effect of that on the culture, on the society, on the dissemination of information, on the acceptability of discourse, dialogue, debate, that all changed dramatically after 9/11 in real dystopian fashion. Yes. And now a lot of Gen Zers who grew up with that as a status quo kind of understand more about the shift that took place in the years following 9/11 and how a lot of that is still alive today. It kind of seemed for a while that Trump sort of turned the page on that, right? Because Trump ran as this anti-interventionist, anti-neocon candidate. He won, And throughout his 4 years, not that there was stability around the world, but stability by comparison to this.
By comparison.
And so we kind of thought, okay, maybe we turn the page on that. And then, as our friend Anish Shivani warned, says, no, this will all come roaring back with a vengeance if Biden wins. And here we are.
Right. Well, I've said this on the show before. I won't get into detail, but America was so different from 2000 to 2001. It was such an all-at-once shift. I've often said the night of the 2000 election, we ended up on the wrong side of a quantum split.
Right.
We wound up in the wrong universe.
Right.
This is a universe where America just went completely wrong starting on that night, and it never recovered from it. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yep, indeed. Like the Stranger Things, the upside-down world,
That's, as a Gen Xer, I have always drawn that parallel. Because post 9/11... Look, I go back, and maybe I'll do a video essay on this eventually. I look at a lot of the cultural products of the 80s and 90s that I loved now, and I see them as coming from a place of incredible wealth and privilege in a way that I didn't think about then. Because so much of the best art being created then was about what you do with this kind of wealth. It was about ennui. It was about a sense of aimlessness. Right? What do you do when your country is the most powerful country in the world and things are pretty good? Right. Talking Heads very much was that band.
Right.
Speaking with that voice. As the days go by is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, how privileged do you have to be for those to be your problems?
Right.
That you're bored in the suburbs with your wife and your car.
Right.
Those are high quality fucking problems.
Those are pretty high quality problems.
Those were our problems until 9/11.
Right. Exactly. All right, we'll take some more Rumble rants and super chats before we close the books on today's show. Speaking of Rabbi guests, please consider inviting Rabbi Brant Rosen from the Sedek Chicago. Yeah, I've heard I should get in touch with him. I will try. I will try that. He speaks very well on this issue. And you should reach out to the leaders of Canadian Jewish Voice for Peace version IJV. Yeah, we definitely got to get Jewish Voice for Peace on as well. I emailed them actually a while back. They've got to be getting tens of thousands of emails a day, so it's not terribly surprising that they haven't gotten back. There's a good chance that got lost.
I got a contact with the Muslim group that was represented there by the women speaking.
Okay.
So I am going to reach out to them, and like I said, I made contact with the Rebbe, so
cool.
Hopefully we'll have him on.
I thought Israel didn't have gay marriage either. Not that that's the point. I think they have like a civil union thing, right? Didn't they find some sort of workaround? Like they don't have codified marriage, but I think they have civil unions, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe they do.
But you're right. That is not the point. Kaiju, thank you for the $5. I love your avatar there, that cool Godzilla. Is it an ethnicity or a religion to be Jewish? I've heard it's a religion, but I've also witnessed people using the phrase to identify as a race. Well, it's kind of both, right?
The eternal question.
We're the sons of Abraham. I mean, there is a racial component to the way a lot of serious Jews think about it. That's why it does kind of get classified as both. That's why Judaism passes down through the maternal line, right?
Exactly. Because you never know who she stooped.
Exactly.
There's a hard practical
Yeah,
element to the matrilineal nature of Judaism.
Kurt
Yes,
liked that joke. We made that joke in pasta.
if you read the Judaism, because we don't trust her.
Because you never know.
Because you never know. If you read the Bible, the Old Testament is very concerned with blood and genealogy and being of the seed of so-and-so. It is very racialist, although surprisingly, it does make allowance for conversion even in the midst of that. It was one thing I was very surprised to find when I read the Bible, because you're spending hundreds of pages on, and he begat he, and she begat him, and the sons of the seed of Abraham spread out on the land. That's like, oh yeah, if you want to be Jewish, you can.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You wouldn't think that from the lead-in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Where's Kill? Thanks for the $2. Jews Deep Blue Sea. Thank you. Do the Right Thing. Was Rappaport in Do the Right Thing?
I'm pretty
I know
sure.
He was in a bunch of Spike
and he
Lee
was in
stuff.
Jungle Fever, right? He was in Jungle Fever.
I know he's been in a bunch of Spike Lee stuff. Yeah, Do the Right Thing. I mean, he'd have been a pretty young guy, but it's possible he was in that.
I'm pretty sure he was. I think you're right.
Named My Taco. You also try and get Tim Dillon on. He's funny. Yeah, that would be fun. I mean, he's big. Not too many people are too big for the show at this point, I don't think. But he might be one of them. But thank you for the suggestion. Cranky Hand. A couple of shows I did a super chat with comments about the UAW and asked Russell for adding me on Facebook, and all the SC showed was my smiley at the end. You got censored for your UAW comments. What did you say about the UAW? That's weird. I didn't know they were clamping down on anti-UAW rhetoric. Although now that the UAW is anti-Free Palestine, maybe they consider that anti-Semitism as well. Ha ha. Just kidding. Not all UAW members feel that way. Only the ones who are gullible enough to show up for a Joe Biden event. But thank you, Cranky Hand. George Gunnell. It is impossible for Israel, conceived and implemented as it is, to not have groups like Hamas free Palestine. Well, yeah, this is what we said as soon as the war broke out. You make that impossible. When you run a prison, you're going to have prison gangs.
That's
right?
it. Right.
What do you think is going to happen?
Brutalize people.
Yeah.
The most brutal people are going to rise to the top in that environment.
Right. It's not a good thing. We're not saying it's a good thing, but you make that inevitable, right? John C., thanks for the 1999. As a Gen X, what would Max Headroom say about the Patriot Act and a ceasefire? Russell, that's you.
Oh, boy.
Thank you, John. That's a generous donation.
Thank you very much. Max Headroom, he would probably make a stuttering joke about the Patriot Act and be for the ceasefire, again, in a stutter.
Right. There you go. Good answer. Pete Sweet, thanks again for the $5. Hedges' commencement speech 2003 against the Iraq War was one of the profiles encouraged during that time. Worth looking up on YouTube during these times. Interesting, because we are going to start doing, not at regular intervals.
That was a tough time to take that position.
It was very tough, of course, yeah. But we are going to start doing flashback sequences, flashback segments, like segments relating to this kind of foreign policy throughout the years. I think on Sunday we're going to do the classic clip of Glenn Greenwald and Bill Maher, and maybe that'll be another thing to do as part of that sort of series that we'll get going.
That'll be interesting.
Indeed. So thank you, Pete.
I mean, hey, we're going to get really into this. As anyone who watches the show can tell, I have a broad interest in history, but yes, 60s, 70s history is a particular fetish. That would be interesting to pull up some of the speeches from the SDS, the NAACP that parallel what's going on now.
Yeah, that would be interesting too. I want to take this. This is not a Rumble rant, but this is a Rumble chat. And since Rumble doesn't have live chat replay on its system, I want this chat immortalized on screen. You guys are doing great work. I was resistant at first. Thought you were just angry fucks. I appreciate your work. Well, thank you.
Well, can both things be right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're righteously angry. Indeed.
We're righteous dudes.
Righteous dudes, indeed. Folks, that is our program for the day. Thank you guys very much for being here. Once again, we are closing in on 500 paid members, after which point we will add our 4th weekly stream. We've got, I think, 5 of you guys signed up over the course of this broadcast, which means we are probably over 450. I haven't done a formal count in a day or so, but we're probably over 450 now, which means we're really coming down the home stretch. So please help us get there so we could do that 4th weekly stream. That'll be an uncensored Rumble stream. Patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, and DoDissidents.locals.com. I haven't integrated this into our plugs in a while, but I will now. If you go to Substack, even if you cannot become a paid member, become a free member. That gets you on our newsletter. We tell you when and where we're going to be broadcasting. We're also now going to, now that we've really got a decent Substack audience now, especially on the strength of Russell's latest article and Matt Taibbi's help in getting it out there, we've got a sort of built-in Substack readership. So we are going to start publishing written material articles more consistently. And those are all free on the Substack. So go over and join our Substack if you haven't. Even if you can't pitch in any money, join for free. It's a newsletter. There will be articles there. And we also publish audio podcast versions of these live streams to Substack. So there's plenty of perks you get just joining the free Substack. So please do that. And like I said, if you can give us $5 a month, that helps tremendously, and it helps get you your 4th stream. And you get all these bonus perks that I said. We get 2 bonus streams per month. Our next one is going to be crazy. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll do that. We will schedule a date for that and announce that on Sunday night, which will be the next time we are live on this platform. Alrighty, looks like that's everything.
I've got my next article is like 2/3 finished, and that is going to be the long-awaited Canada one that I've been talking about since before I even went to Italy.
Yes, indeed. Russell's Canada piece. I have a couple other things that
I'm
I
hoping
might do
for
too.
next week. So if you're on the Substack, you'll see it as soon as it drops. Be nice to see my brother over here get back to writing.
Yeah, I am. I have a couple ideas. That I'm definitely going to put to ink. So we will get into that. So join the Substack. If you can join as a paid member, that's great. Join for free, that's great. And if you join on Patreon, we basically put a Patreon post up saying, hey, there's a new Substack article with the link. So you guys will get notifications too. So that functions more as a newsletter as well. Wherever you go, get in touch, stay in touch. Rumble, if you're over there, hit that follow button. Very important. YouTube, if you're here and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And follow us on Rumble anyway, rumble.com/DoDissidents. All very important to stay in touch with us on multiple platforms. That's how you got to do it nowadays. We will see you all Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thanks very much for this morning. Be safe and be well.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
Courage.
Please clap.